A male student arrives at the school early that day and immediately draws the attention of many students around him from every direction. From the way they look at him and whisper among themselves in hushed voices, he is regarded as someone frightening and intimidating. When he enters the classroom, the attention does not fade in the slightest. Every student in the room keeps watching him with cautious eyes until he finally takes his seat, and the atmosphere only slowly settles afterward throughout the room. Not long after, a bespectacled male student approaches him without much hesitation and reminds him about a plan for the entire class to go to the cinema together after school hours. The moment this happens, everyone focuses on the expression in his eyes with growing concern, and many students assume that the bespectacled student has angered him without realizing it. Some even wonder whether that student is trying to force him to join the plan against his wishes. From his own perspective, Takashi thinks that if he were in their position, he would probably react the same way under those circumstances. He feels that this kind of reaction is something he has to get used to over time, because he senses that people will continue to see him like this for the rest of his life from now onward. After school ends, Takashi is suddenly called by a female student named Sasaki from behind him. She points out that 3 years have already passed since they last met, and asks how he has been all this time. The moment catches Takashi completely off guard, and his thoughts drift back to the past without warning. 3 years earlier, in a classroom setting during a normal day, a teacher ends the lesson because there are no more questions from the students to be asked. Some students prepare to go home for the evening, while others stay behind to chat casually with their friends. At that time, Takashi is already thinking that he needs to head to his club activities without delay. His male friend Ken urges him to hurry as quickly as possible, explaining that it is time for the regular selection now that the third-year students have retired from the team. Ken believes this creates a real chance for them to enter the main team that season. He hopes that both he and Takashi can become regular players on the roster, although Takashi considers that outcome unrealistic at the moment. In the same classroom, Sasaki is receiving praise for her artwork from several classmates, which matches everyone's expectations of a member of the art club with such talent. Her female friends admire her consistently good drawings and artistic skill, and recall that her talent has been evident since elementary school many years ago. One of them encourages Sasaki to try drawing something different as well for a change. From a distance, Takashi watches Sasaki and her friends with quiet curiosity. Ken notices this and asks what Takashi is looking at, then casually assumes that Takashi has feelings for Sasaki based on that reaction. Takashi immediately denies the assumption without any hesitation. Soon after, Sasaki calls out to Takashi and gives him a dolphin-shaped keychain as a gift. Takashi explains that he went to the swimming pool with his family the day before during the weekend. Since he had previously given her a souvenir, Sasaki offers the keychain in return as a gesture. She asks whether the dolphin keychain is nice, and Takashi responds by expressing his fondness for dolphins and marine animals. The situation changes abruptly when a teacher calls Takashi over to the front and informs him that he is 1 hour late that day for school. Takashi apologizes and explains that he was practicing earlier in the morning before classes started, insisting that he is not actually late from his perspective. The teacher dismisses the explanation as an excuse and emphasizes that school is a place for learning, pointing out that Takashi has been slacking recently in his studies. Before the teacher finishes speaking, Sasaki interrupts to discuss matters related to club activities with the teacher. Other students comment on how close Sasaki seems to be with the teacher, Yamashita, although some consider it natural since Yamashita serves as the advisor for the art club at the school. Later, Ken tells Takashi that Sasaki is fairly well known among the students, mentioning that she is beautiful and kind toward everyone. He also adds that there are 4 people who are interested in her at the moment, which sparks Takashi's curiosity about who they might be exactly. However, after reacting too openly, Takashi suddenly falls silent for a brief moment. Ken then remarks that Takashi can get along easily with Sasaki, guessing that this closeness comes from the fact that Takashi and Sasaki were classmates during the 5th and 6th grades of elementary school in the past. After some time of baseball practice on the field, the coach calls all club members to gather together near the bench area. he announces that he is about to reveal the names of those selected for the core team that year. The atmosphere among the club members becomes tense, filled with nervous anticipation and quiet curiosity about the results. When the announcement is finally made, it turns out that Ken is not chosen, and only Takashi earns a place on the core team after the selection. Ken immediately congratulates Takashi with a forced smile. Takashi notices that Ken's expression looks drained and disappointed because he is not selected, while Takashi himself feels confused about how he is chosen in the first place over the others. Ken explains that during the defensive sessions, Takashi clearly performs better than him in several areas. Takashi thinks of it as mere luck, but Ken insists that it is the result of Takashi's ability and hard work. From Ken's perspective, Takashi's batting technique is remarkably impressive, and Takashi is also extremely consistent and diligent in practice. After reflecting on this for a while, Ken strengthens his resolve not to give up on his dream and firmly believes that he will become a core team member in the next tournament without fail. He also expresses that Takashi is his trusted and close friend, and that next time, the two of them will stand on the core team together side by side. Takashi feels deeply moved by these sincere and heartfelt words, while Ken urges him to say something because the situation feels a bit embarrassing. Instead, Takashi simply asks him to go somewhere together after practice. That night, Takashi tells his mother that he successfully makes it into the core team at last, and she praises him with a warm smile. Matsu, who is also present at the shop, asks whether Takashi's team has many members this season. Takashi explains that there are 20 students from his grade who become part of the core team for now. Matsu then suggests celebrating with drinks for the occasion, but Takashi's mother immediately stops the idea, reminding everyone that Takashi is only 13 years old at present. She adds that Takashi's father, who has already passed away, must be very happy about this achievement from above. Matsu then asks whether the bat Takashi is carrying is a gift from his father long ago. Takashi confirms it and explains that his club allows him to use his personal bat during games. Matsu praises him, saying that Takashi looks quite impressive these days. Suddenly, a girl appears, clearly annoyed because Takashi is swinging his bat inside the shop once again. She turns out to be Takashi's older sister after all. She tells him to behave more properly, since there are customers around the area. Takashi's mother points out that his sister says that despite the fact that she previously brought her boyfriend upstairs not long ago, Matsu reacts with surprise upon hearing this unexpected detail. Takashi's sister becomes irritated, feeling that the house lacks any real privacy. Matsu reflects that, regardless of everything, Takashi's sister is already a college student by now. Takashi then follows his sister upstairs and informs her that he has made it into the core team this year. When she enters her room, she warns Takashi not to step inside under any circumstances, and Takashi complies without complaint. As Takashi is about to head to his own room, his sister calls him again from behind. She praises him, which makes Takashi feel genuinely happy, and he expresses his gratitude right away. Afterward, Takashi feels that his house is far too noisy as usual. At school, Takashi is cleaning the blackboard when Sasaki arrives and apologizes for making him handle the classroom duty alone that day. Takashi reassures her that there is no need to worry, since he only has to erase the board for now. He then asks whether Sasaki is busy lately, and she confirms that she is indeed busy. Sasaki explains that Shimizu from the second year calls her earlier during the day. Takashi is surprised, knowing that Shimizu is a well-known and handsome boy. Sasaki reveals that Shimizu asks her out on a date recently. Takashi becomes curious about her response to him. Sasaki then explains that she turns him down, reasoning that they are still first-year students, and that such things are inappropriate at this stage of life. Takashi feels a sense of relief inside his heart. Sasaki notices his reaction and wonders whether Takashi is worried about something. Takashi recalls that Ken once mentions that 4 people are interested in Sasaki at school. He falls silent for a moment, prompting Sasaki to call out to him again with concern. Sasaki comments on how tall Takashi is, while mentioning that she has not grown taller since elementary school ended years ago. Takashi feels embarrassed by this remark about his height. Sasaki then says that the classroom duty is finished and prepares to leave the room. Takashi calls after her, and with visible hesitation, invites Sasaki to go out with him on Saturday if she has time available. He adds that he has a coupon from McDonald's that he received. At that moment, Ken suddenly arrives and calls Takashi, informing him that club activities are about to begin very soon. Takashi feels frustrated and quickly says goodbye to Sasaki before leaving. However, Sasaki calls him again from behind and suggests eating out together on Saturday as a celebration for Takashi making the core team at school. Takashi feels happy inside his heart, especially because Sasaki already knows about his achievements so quickly. He tells Sasaki to enjoy her time at her club activities, but Sasaki explains that her club is taking a break that day for once. As two female students walk outside the school grounds after class, Yamashita passes by and offers a brief farewell to them in passing. After he goes by, one of the girls comments that Yamashita feels frightening to approach. Shortly afterward, Yamashita crosses paths with Sasaki, who also gives him a polite farewell greeting. Yamashita then calls her back and asks whether she has a little time to spare right now. Inside the art room, Sasaki asks if there is something that needs to be discussed with him, and she momentarily thinks about matters related to assignment submissions for class. Yamashita remains silent instead for a moment. He then locks the door, changing the atmosphere of the room entirely. Yamashita tells Sasaki that she is a kind person by nature, explaining that even though everyone treats him poorly, Sasaki continues to stay by his side regardless. Without warning, Yamashita suddenly pulls Sasaki into an embrace, causing her to freeze in shock and fear instantly. Sasaki struggles to break free from him and questions his actions in panic. Yamashita insists that Sasaki has feelings for him and claims that this is the reason she treats him kindly all this time. Sasaki begins to tremble in fear, especially as Yamashita moves closer to her without stopping. She makes it clear that he is mistaken about her feelings. Irritated by this, Yamashita grabs her again and accuses her of merely playing with his feelings for fun. He then forcefully tears Sasaki's uniform, leaving her cornered and overwhelmed with terror and confusion. Yamashita goes on to say that he has recently seen Sasaki spending time with Takashi, and he places the blame on Takashi for the fact that Sasaki does not return his feelings at all. At the same time, elsewhere on the field nearby, Takashi continues baseball practice with determination. He successfully catches the ball, earning praise from his fellow club members once again. Ken remarks that Takashi seems especially energetic that day during practice. Ken assumes this enthusiasm comes from the planned outing with Sasaki, although Takashi does not consider it a date in particular. Another teammate comments that Takashi is now also a member of the core team and appears to be living his best days so far, but he does not intend to fall behind and asks the coach to keep the practice going even longer. Takashi encourages Ken as well, acknowledging that the words are true, while also admitting that they make him feel slightly uneasy for some reason. Back in the art club room, Sasaki lies motionless and disheveled, unable to react to anything. Yamashita takes photographs of her in that state without hesitation. He declares that what has happened is now their shared secret from now on, warning that if Sasaki tells anyone, the entire world will see the photos and videos of her through exposure. Sasaki is left in shock as Yamashita moves close to her face and pleads with her not to force him to carry out that threat himself. After that, Yamashita leaves the room without another word, while Sasaki breaks down in tears all alone. That day marks the beginning of a life for Takashi that feels as if it is descending into hell before his eyes. At that moment, however, Takashi remains completely unaware of it altogether. The next day, Takashi asks about Sasaki, who is absent from school again once more. Yamashita responds that it seems Sasaki is not feeling well these days. At her home, Sasaki lies quietly on her bed in silence. When the door to her room opens and her mother checks on her, Sasaki's mind suddenly fills with the image of Yamashita, asking about her feelings once again. Her mother asks about her condition, and Sasaki says that she is feeling better than before. Hearing this, her mother expresses relief at once. Even so, Sasaki remains gloomy and feels a strong urge to talk to her mother about everything. Before she can do so, her mother explains that Sasaki's teacher has come to the house to deliver copies of her school materials and notes. The teacher also asks to see Sasaki's room, and because he has come from far away to visit, her mother feels unable to refuse his request to enter the house. The teacher turns out to be Yamashita himself. Her mother then leaves the room, saying that she will bring some tea for them, and Yamashita thanks her for her kindness. Left alone with him, Sasaki is immediately overwhelmed by fear and dread. Yamashita warns Sasaki not to skip school anymore from now on, explaining that if she behaves suspiciously, the photos and videos will be made public for everyone. Sasaki grows more frightened with each word and tries to call out to her mother for help. Yamashita then tells her to go to school the next day as usual, adding that if she is absent again, he will come to visit her room every single day without fail. He gently strokes Sasaki's cheek, causing her body to tremble uncontrollably in fear and panic. At that moment, Sasaki's mother returns with the tea for them. Yamashita excuses himself, claiming that something urgent has happened at work all of a sudden. Sasaki's mother praises Yamashita, describing him as a good teacher and caring person. After he leaves, Sasaki pulls the blanket back over herself once more and remains frozen in fear and anxiety. The following day, Ken feels completely exhausted due to the intense morning practice session. He acknowledges that no one expects such early training every morning, but he still carries confidence that he can make the team in the summer season ahead. When they arrive in the classroom, Takashi notices that Sasaki is present at school and assumes that she has recovered from her illness. However, Sasaki sits silently, staring straight ahead with an empty gaze, which leaves Takashi confused and concerned. After a moment, Sasaki greets Takashi with a forced smile on her face, and Takashi responds in return out of habit. He assumes that she is still unwell at heart. Sasaki then apologizes to Takashi, explaining that she cannot go out to eat the next day because she does not feel completely better yet physically. Takashi accepts this calmly, thinking that it is more important for her to rest and recover, and Sasaki agrees with him. Takashi feels drained by the situation after hearing that, prompting Ken to ask what is wrong with him. Takashi offers his hamburger coupon to Ken, which immediately lifts Ken's mood considerably. Meanwhile, Sasaki thinks to herself that she is only sick at the moment for now. Suddenly, her friends come over and call out to her, catching her off guard completely. One of them asks whether Sasaki has heard the story going around, while another comments that Sasaki has been acting strangely lately at school. Takashi notices the scene from a distance nearby. He observes Sasaki's vacant expression, even though it has already been 2 weeks since her absence began. Soon after, Ken arrives and urges Takashi to head to the club together right away. As Takashi leaves the classroom, Yamashita arrives shortly afterward without delay. Several female students begin talking among themselves, noting that Yamashita never greets male students at all. From their perspective, this behavior feels unsettling and unusual, and some of them speculate that Yamashita is suspicious, even labeling him as someone dangerous to be around. They assume that he harbors obscene thoughts whenever he looks at girls around him. While these comments circulate casually through the class, Sasaki is overwhelmed by fear and cannot bring herself to react in any way. Sasaki's friends continue discussing Yamashita without restraint or hesitation. One of them even remarks that she would never want to kiss Yamashita, not even in exchange for a large amount of money or rewards. As these words reach her ears, Sasaki suddenly feels nauseous inside. She ends up vomiting in the classroom, causing her friends to panic and crowd around her in concern immediately. Hearing the commotion, Takashi returns to the classroom, driven by worry for Sasaki once again. Yamashita approaches Sasaki and asks about her condition directly. Sasaki falls silent, then apologizes and says she will clean up the mess herself personally. Yamashita suggests that someone should escort her to the infirmary for treatment. Takashi watches the scene with a confused expression, unable to say a single word to anyone. After school, Takashi calls out to Sasaki nearby. Startled, Sasaki asks whether Takashi has already finished his club activities for the day. Takashi says that he has, even though he is actually skipping them this time. He then asks whether something is troubling her, and gently suggests that she can talk to him if she feels comfortable doing so someday. Sasaki remains silent for several moments. At that moment, a motorcycle speeds through the intersection nearby at high speed. Reacting instinctively, Takashi grabs Sasaki's hand to pull her out of danger at once. However, Sasaki suddenly pulls away, panics, and becomes hysterical, begging Takashi not to touch her ever again. Takashi immediately apologizes for startling her, and then walks away without another word or explanation. Sasaki tries to stop him before he leaves and apologizes as well, insisting that it is not Takashi's fault at all. However, Takashi does not turn back to face her. Left alone, Sasaki breaks down in tears by the side of the road that evening. That night, Takashi convinces himself that Sasaki truly hates him deep down. He repeatedly questions what he might have done to make her feel that way, and tears begin to fall from his eyes without warning. On October 1st, Ken is surprised to see Takashi assigned to balance training during lunchtime at school. Takashi explains that a senior informs him of this during the morning practice because he leaves in the middle of training the day before without permission. Ken responds that this is exactly what he expects from Takashi these days and encourages him to keep going. Ken then asks whether Takashi speaks with Sasaki the previous day after class. Takashi does not answer and simply walks away in silence. Ken follows him and tells him not to worry, suggesting that if things do not work out with Sasaki, he can always move on to someone else eventually. Takashi thanks Ken briefly and leaves with his head hanging low, his expression drained of energy and spirit. Ken is left feeling confused and uneasy about everything. As Takashi exits the school grounds later that day, he notices Sasaki walking through the corridor with a gloomy expression once again on her face. He wonders where she is going but understands that he has no right to interfere in her personal matters, so he does not approach her directly. Suddenly, he sees a look of shock cross Sasaki's face before she enters the art club room ahead of him. Feeling that something is wrong immediately, Takashi follows her from behind. Standing outside the art room, Takashi hears the voice of an adult man praising someone's skin, scent, and taste in a disturbing manner. Confused and alarmed, Takashi crouches down and peeks through the gap beneath the door carefully. What he sees leaves him frozen in shock on the spot. Yamashita is violating Sasaki's body inside the room. Yamashita urges her not to make too much noise while he continues. Takashi, witnessing this, is overwhelmed with disbelief and horror. Yamashita remarks that this is the fourth time, assuming that Sasaki already understands, and adds that since this happens during lunchtime, he wants to finish quickly because he no longer has much time remaining. Sasaki notices Takashi watching from under the door at that moment. Tears spill from her eyes without stopping. At the same time, Takashi's mind flashes back to the moment when Sasaki smiles as she gives him the dolphin-shaped keychain long ago. He remembers her happiness when he invites her out to eat as a celebration for making the core team earlier. The image of that gentle smile contrasts painfully with the present, and Takashi feels an intense surge of anger as he clenches his fists, realizing that the smile he cherishes is gone forever. Sasaki cries softly and pleads for help in a trembling voice filled with fear. Takashi himself begins to cry as well. Yamashita hears her and remarks that it makes him sad to hear that. He claims that he loves Sasaki and describes her as different from other girls, someone kind and angelic in his eyes. At that moment, Takashi forces his way into the room without hesitation. Before Yamashita can fully react, Takashi swings his baseball bat and strikes Yamashita on the head, knocking him to the ground instantly. Takashi then urges Sasaki to leave the room immediately for her safety. Moments later, Yamashita regains consciousness and grabs Takashi by the shoulder, questioning what Takashi has done to a teacher like him. Takashi is shocked by the sudden movement behind him. Elsewhere, in a classroom, another teacher is conducting a lesson for the students. Ken stands up and informs the teacher that both Takashi and Sasaki are missing from class. The teacher responds that they will be in serious trouble, even though they are supposedly on their way to class right now. Ken is left anxious and confused, unable to shake his worry about Takashi and Sasaki any longer. In the art room, Takashi has already killed Yamashita with the baseball bat in his hands. Sasaki is left utterly shaken, unable to comprehend the reality of what has just occurred before her eyes. Earlier in the past, Sasaki introduces herself in front of a group of elementary school students during class. She explains that she transfers into the class starting from the 5th grade, after being moved from another school recently. At that time, Takashi is a student in that very classroom as well. He is left completely mesmerized and quietly captivated as he looks at Sasaki, especially when she turns and offers him a gentle and heartfelt smile in his direction, an image that quietly and permanently remains in his memory. The scene then returns to the grim site of the killing, where Yamashita lies completely dead and motionless, and his mobile phone is also completely destroyed beyond repair. The harsh reality of the situation crashes down on Sasaki all at once with overwhelming force. Overwhelmed by intense shock and emotional turmoil, she begins to cry loudly and scream in panic, unable to process what has just happened before her eyes. Nearby, Takashi walks away in silence while dragging his baseball bat heavily along the floor. His eyes are completely empty, and his expression shows absolutely no emotion, as if his mind has completely shut itself off from the world around him. Meanwhile, in a classroom, Ken struggles to stay awake during the ongoing lesson. Even so, he remains alert and cautious, knowing that the teacher in charge is extremely strict and unforgiving, and that falling asleep would only bring trouble. Suddenly, Ken notices Takashi walking down the corridor outside the classroom windows. Takashi's body and face are completely covered in blood. Alarmed and deeply disturbed, Ken shouts out to him. He is deeply concerned and unsettled, especially since mathematics class has already begun. Yet Takashi continues to walk calmly and steadily, as if nothing is wrong at all. When Takashi enters the classroom, all the students immediately turn toward him. Shock spreads instantly throughout the room, followed by terrified screams as they see him drenched in blood from head to toe. The teacher is stunned by the horrifying sight and immediately demands to know what has happened. Takashi states that he strikes Yamashita with a bat and kills him. The disturbance quickly draws more students from nearby areas, who gather out of curiosity and concern, but the teachers soon ordered them to return to their classrooms. Despite this, rumors spread rapidly among the students, including gruesome and disturbing details about Yamashita being killed and his brain scattered everywhere. Among the baseball team members, Takashi becomes the main topic of discussion and concern. Ken remains completely silent throughout, unable to say anything at all. Later, he spots Sasaki and approaches her, trying to confirm whether the incident is actually true. Sasaki does not respond at all and remains completely silent. Other students begin to suspect that Sasaki might have witnessed everything that happened firsthand. In the principal's office, the teachers and the principal question Takashi about what leads to the incident. Takashi explains that he dislikes his homeroom teacher from the very beginning and therefore kills him. At the same time, at Takashi's home, his mother receives a phone call informing her about what has occurred at school. She is left in complete shock and disbelief by the news. Soon after, the police arrive at Takashi's school, followed closely by members of the media and news reporters. Journalists immediately focus on Takashi as the perpetrator of a murder, emphasizing the fact that he is only 13 years old. To them, this case promises to become a sensational and highly publicized story. Among the students, everything feels unreal and surreal, as if they are watching something that cannot possibly be happening in their own lives. One male student comments that he feels a strange and unsettling sense of excitement about the situation. Hearing this, Ken becomes furious and grabs the student by the collar. From Ken's perspective, Takashi is already in an unimaginably terrible and tragic situation. The male student responds by accusing Ken of trying to protect the murderer. At that moment, a teacher rushes in and separates the two of them before things escalate further. Later, one male student is interviewed by the press and various reporters. He claims that the signs are already there 2 weeks earlier, pointing out that Takashi is often late to class because of his morning practices. He adds that Takashi is then harshly reprimanded by the teacher afterward in front of others. Many students find it hard to believe that Takashi kills a teacher for such a reason alone, leading them to assume that the relationship between Takashi and the teacher must have been deeply strained and problematic. Ken, upon hearing this narrative and explanation, insists that Takashi would never do something like that for such a trivial and insignificant reason. Not long after, a journalist approaches Ken directly, asking questions about him and demanding Takashi's address and a photograph. Ken feels nothing but anger, frustration, and helplessness as he faces the growing intrusion surrounding his friend. Meanwhile, Kanoko, Takashi's older sister, wakes up from her sleep early that morning. Her boyfriend informs her that there is news coverage about the junior high school Takashi attends on national television. The information shocks her to the core, especially when she notices 7 missed calls on her phone waiting for her. On television, a report is airing about the murder of a teacher in Yokohama, committed by a perpetrator who is only 13 years old at the time. Taro Hashimoto, a professor from Meinan University, watches the same news broadcast with great attention. The presenter explains that, in principle, children under the age of 14 are not held criminally responsible, so the juvenile court decides to transfer the case to family court, meaning it is treated as an ordinary juvenile case under current law. Viewers begin to question whether there is a possibility that a 13-year-old could be sent to a juvenile reformatory under such circumstances. A novelist named Miranda Natsuki comments that such an outcome cannot be ruled out, especially because the motive of the crime is also shocking, as it appears to stem from what seems like ordinary hatred toward a teacher from the outside. Taro observes the case and senses a feeling of deep despair in the perpetrator. He is particularly struck by the fact that the murder weapon is a bat described as a keepsake from the perpetrator's father, which adds another layer of tragedy to the incident as a whole. Elsewhere, a young man scrolls through online discussions where countless people are talking about Takashi's case without restraint. Users freely exchange Takashi's personal information across various forums. Some accounts claim that Takashi strikes the victim 10 times during the attack. Others identify the shop owned by Takashi's mother and begin spreading its location to other users. Another group of users shares information about Takashi's sister as well, allowing the situation to spiral further out of control with alarming speed. At the juvenile detention center, Takashi's mother comes to visit him in person. She reassures him that things will eventually be all right on their side and expresses confidence that the shop can reopen again before long. She urges Takashi to focus on thinking about his own situation for the time being. Overwhelmed with guilt and regret, Takashi apologizes repeatedly, believing that he has ruined everything for his family. He breaks down in tears and continues to apologize to his mother without stopping for several moments. After the visit, Takashi's mother returns home feeling exhausted. When she arrives at her shop, she finds numerous graffiti messages covering the walls, labeling it as a murder shop in large letters. Some neighbors comment that the graffiti has increased again over recent days, while others speak harshly about her intention to restart the business despite everything. There are also those who complain that the people loitering around the area are becoming a serious nuisance to the neighborhood. Takashi's mother approaches them and expresses her regret for causing so many problems, but the neighbors leave without responding to her words. Later, Kanoko arrives and explains that the media has even begun appearing at her university, bombarding her with absurd questions that she finds deeply irritating and invasive. She also mentions that her boyfriend and friends are starting to distance themselves from her little by little. Kanoko grows increasingly angry, feeling that she has to suffer like this even though Takashi is the one responsible for everything that happened. She then notices that the shop is now closed as well because of it. Throughout all of this, Takashi's mother remains silent, standing there without saying a single word to anyone nearby. On November 5, 2014, the prosecutor announces the sentence for Takashi before the court. The decision states that Takashi is to be sent to a child self-reliance support facility for a period of 2 years, starting from November 15, 2014, and that this placement is to be treated as a mandatory measure under judicial supervision. When the prosecutor asks whether there are any questions, Takashi responds that there are none, showing no outward resistance or confusion about the ruling. Yamashita's wife, who attends the court session, feels deep anger upon hearing the decision that has been made. From her perspective, sending Takashi to a child self-reliance support facility instead of a juvenile reformatory is far too lenient, and she believes that such a punishment does not come close to matching the gravity of what has happened at all. Observing her reaction from nearby, Taro understands her rage all too well. Her husband's life is taken away suddenly, without any fault of his own, and now the perpetrator is fully protected by juvenile law and regulations. To Taro, this criminal trial already appears to be a highly complex and emotionally charged case, one that leaves no party truly satisfied or at peace. Around the same time, Takashi's mother visits Sasaki's house in person. Sasaki's mother greets her coldly at the door and immediately asks what Takashi's mother wants from them. Takashi's mother explains that she wishes to speak with Sasaki for a short while if possible. Hearing this, Sasaki's mother becomes furious and states that because of Takashi, Sasaki has suffered mental trauma for years. She explains that Sasaki is no longer able to sleep alone at night without fear. Takashi's mother apologizes repeatedly, her posture filled with remorse and regret. Sasaki then appears from inside, and Takashi's mother expresses her belief that something serious must have happened, because Takashi could not possibly have killed someone without reason or cause. In response, Sasaki's mother strikes Takashi's mother and forces her to leave the house at once. Sasaki is left in shock by the sudden violence before her. Sasaki's mother warns Takashi's mother never to appear before her again, under any circumstances. When Sasaki tries to speak for herself, her mother stops her and orders her to go back inside the house. At the child's self-reliance support facility, Takashi sits quietly, lost in thought for hours. His mind drifts back to the past, recalling the time when he first meets Sasaki at school. He remembers how Sasaki often jokes around afterward, making him laugh without effort, and how she tells him that his laughter looks nice and genuine. He recalls his face turning red in embarrassment, and Sasaki teasing him about it with amusement. These memories surface gently, contrasting sharply with his present surroundings and reality. Time passes quickly day by day, and before he fully realizes it, Takashi graduates from junior high school, while still under the care of the facility and staff. In September 2017, Takashi begins attending high school, stepping into a new stage of his life, carrying with him the weight of everything that has happened before until now. The incident takes place almost 3 years ago, and now Takashi relocates and begins a new school life in Chiba District from scratch. His family changes his surname to match his mother's former name, and as a result, his new classmates call him Takashi under this new identity every day. Within this unfamiliar environment, Takashi tells one of his male classmates that, to be honest, his perspective toward male friends has changed quite a bit. The classmate reacts with curiosity, prompting Takashi to reflect further on it. Takashi explains that when he first sees this classmate, he assumes that the boy will be difficult to understand and hard to get along with at first. However, as time passes, Takashi realizes that the boy is actually kind and approachable by nature. Alongside this change, Takashi now lives in a new place and carefully constructs an entirely new personal background for himself. Every detail is designed to conceal his past, allowing him to survive and function in his present life without drawing suspicion from others. His existence becomes a quiet performance, built on avoidance and silence every day. A bespectacled male classmate then reminds him about their plan to go to the cinema together this weekend. Shortly after, a female classmate joins them, expressing excitement that Takashi plans to watch a movie, and saying that she wants to come along as well for fun. At the same time, she shows slight irritation, because Takashi ignores all the messages she sends him recently. Takashi responds with an apology, attempting to smooth things over between them. Another male classmate leans in and whispers that the girl might have feelings for Takashi, adding that she is quite attractive and pleasant to spend time with after class. None of the students around them know that Takashi, under this new name and identity, is connected to a serious incident from several years earlier involving murder. To them, he is simply another ordinary student their age. That night, Takashi returns home and is greeted by his mother, who is washing dishes in the kitchen as usual. Takashi asks if there is anything he can help with, but his mother tells him that there is nothing he needs to do right now. She also mentions that Kanoko has already come home earlier today. She explains that Takashi and his older sister have not spoken to each other for years by now. When Takashi quietly peeks into Kanoko's room, a deep sense of sadness settles in his chest once again. During dinner, Takashi's mother asks about how Kanoko has been living her life over the past year on her own. After that, She turns her attention to Takashi with concern. Takashi explains that he wants to spend time with his friends more often, and that he plans to go see a movie with some classmates the following week after school. His mother praises him for this, clearly relieved to see him engaging with others again at last. Kanoko, however, reacts with irritation and frustration. She points out that their mother has been constantly worrying about Takashi for a long time, especially because Takashi usually spends his days off staying inside the house without doing anything productive at all. Kanoko then apologizes and says that she needs to leave right away. Both Takashi and their mother are surprised by her sudden decision to depart. Takashi rushes after Kanoko without hesitation. He tells her that they are finally together again as siblings and that he can finally see her after such a long time apart from her. Kanoko stops walking and responds that Takashi seems happy now these days, but she questions whether someone like him truly deserves happiness again after everything. Takashi is left stunned by her words for a moment. Kanoko continues by explaining that she knows their mother wants the two of them to have a harmonious relationship once more, which is why she comes home that night and even cooks a meal for everyone. At the same time, she admits that she feels conflicted deep inside, because she hears that Takashi might be happy now, and that realization fills her with jealousy and resentment. Kanoko goes on to say that, in her view, all of them are now cursed because of Takashi's case and actions. Their mother loses the shop that she builds together with their father through years of hard work and dedication, and Kanoko herself can no longer show her face at university, let alone focus on her studies properly anymore. Hearing this, Takashi apologizes quietly once again. Kanoko then brings up Takashi's close friend whom he leaves behind, Ken, noting that Ken's older sibling is in the same grade as Kanoko at university. When Takashi asks what happens to Ken, Kanoko suggests that Takashi should ask Ken directly, if Ken is even willing to speak to him anymore after all this. Takashi accepts this reality in silence. Deep down, he believes that he has no right to this happiness or comfort. What he carries with him is only pain and regret, and he understands that this pain is the consequence he must bear for now and onward. At school, Takashi finds himself thinking about Ken's situation throughout class. His thoughts drift so deeply that he fails to notice his surroundings for some time, until his bespectacled male classmate calls out to him for spacing out during lunch. Startled, Takashi quickly apologizes to him. The boy then says that he actually wants to talk about a case he recently hears about in the news, an incident from several years ago, where a student stabs his own teacher, and now that student is supposedly around the same age as them today. Another male classmate joins the conversation and adds that, not long ago, a teacher is beaten so badly that blood is splattered everywhere across the room. Hearing this, Takashi freezes in shock and disbelief. They refer to the perpetrator as Boy A, saying that he is currently the same age as them right now. Takashi's female friend comments that their generation is full of monsters and criminals. One of the boys imagines how terrifying it is that someone like Boy A, who kills a teacher simply because he dislikes him, is now walking free among society. The girl shudders and says that the idea is genuinely frightening to imagine. The bespectacled boy agrees, stating that someone like that clearly has no heart or conscience, and that a monster like him can never live a normal life or ever make up for what he has done in the past. Throughout the conversation, Takashi remains silent and withdrawn. Noticing this, the bespectacled boy calls his name and asks whether he is okay or not. Before Takashi can answer, a female student suddenly tells the three of them to move aside for her. They step out of the way, and the girl passes without another word or glance. The bespectacled boy asks Takashi whether he knows her personally. Takashi mutters that he cannot understand her behavior at all these days. The female friend explains that the girl's name is Kahilai and that she is in the same class as them this year. Apparently, there are no good rumors about her, and people believe she has nerves of steel under pressure. Later, Takashi's friends suggest going to karaoke together after school, but Takashi explains that he has a part-time job and cannot leave his shift that evening. While working as a cashier at a convenience store, Takashi decides that he must continue hiding his past. His case keeps resurfacing again and again on the internet, and he fears that his classmates might read about it online once they get home later tonight. He wonders whether they might scrutinize his photos carefully for clues, but he reassures himself that it would be difficult to identify him from old images alone after so long. After his shift ends, the store owner tells him he can go home for the day. As Takashi changes clothes in the staff room, anxiety grips him once more. He worries about the possibility that someone might uncover his true identity at any time. In his imagination, he hears the bespectacled boy saying that someone like him deserves to rot in prison forever alone. On his way home, Takashi feels lost, unable to picture how things will unfold from here in life. Suddenly, he runs into his female friend by chance. They start walking together down the street. Takashi asks why she does not go to karaoke, and she replies that everyone has already gone home by now. She tells him that she secretly hopes she would run into him like this someday. She also mentions that compared to when she first enters the school, Takashi keeps getting taller and seems to be growing more and more every month. Her words trigger a memory of Sasaki saying the same thing in the past to him. Sensing his reaction, the girl asks if something is wrong, but Takashi shakes his head and says it is nothing important. She then admits that there is something she always wants to ask him personally. However, just as she is about to say it, the two male classmates suddenly appear and ask whether they are interrupting Takashi and her conversation. The girl bluntly thinks that, yes, they are very much interrupting them right now. The bespectacled boy laughs it off, guessing that everyone is simply tired from school. He then announces that they will go watch a movie at 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. Because Takashi stays quiet the entire time, one of the boys asks what has been troubling his mind lately so much. He even offers to listen if Takashi wants to talk about his problems, saying that he might be able to help find a solution together. Takashi thanks him sincerely for that. Deep inside, he knows that he does not want to lose any of this again. Even though he understands that he will never truly be forgiven, today he still walks home together with his friends for now. Elsewhere, however, someone is uploading Takashi's personal information onto the internet, information tied to his former identity, now linked to the name Yamasaki for everyone. With a smile on their face, that person hopes that Takashi will end up rotting in prison forever one day. In the past, Takashi's father gives him a baseball bat as a birthday present with pride. Takashi feels genuinely happy when he receives it, even though the bat looks far too large for his small hands at the time to hold. His father explains that the bat is a standard size used in official competitions and matches. He believes that once Takashi enters junior high school, he will be able to use it properly and grow into a professional baseball player in the future. That hopeful moment lingers in his memory, but the image suddenly shifts without warning. The scene changes into a painful memory where Yamashita appears, groaning in agony on the floor. Overwhelmed by fear, Takashi tries to run away from him. However, Yamashita grabs Takashi's hand, preventing him from escaping, and making it clear that Takashi cannot run from what is happening or happened. At that instant, Takashi jolts awake from the nightmare, startled by the sound of his alarm clock ringing loudly. The time already shows 23 minutes past 6 in the morning. Hearing Takashi scream, his mother rushes over in worry from nearby. Takashi quickly apologizes and reassures her that he is fine for now. This day marks the anniversary of Yamashita's death, and every year on this exact date, Takashi relives the same nightmare all over again. No matter how hard he tries or how many ways he attempts to forget, he cannot erase the memory of how chaotic and irreversible that day is in his mind. At school, one of Takashi's male friends calls out to him because Takashi is standing still, his expression looking pale and lifeless that morning. The friend asks about Takashi's plans, sensing that something is off about him. Before Takashi can respond, his female friend approaches and comments that Takashi likely cannot sleep the night before, confidently assuming that he spends the night thinking about her instead. The male friend reacts by saying that she must be incredibly fortunate to hear that, and she readily agrees with a grin. He then remarks that some people seem slightly jealous today because of it and glances toward the bespectacled male friend, causing him to stiffen in surprise for a second. When asked why he looks so uneasy, the bespectacled friend denies feeling nervous at all whatsoever. Later, during class, Takashi's female friend reminds him about a CD he mentioned, but Takashi realizes that he forgets to bring it with him to school. She appears slightly disappointed, especially because Takashi previously says that he wants her to listen to it personally. Takashi apologizes and promises that he will lend it to her after school that day. Only then does he remember that his house is not on the same route as hers after all. She reacts in surprise, realizing that she mistakenly assumes Takashi is about to invite her to his house directly. At that moment, another male friend suddenly comes over and asks what the two of them are talking about together. Without hesitation, the female friend pushes Takashi toward the classroom exit, determined not to let the moment be ruined by the interruption this time. Left behind, the male friend looks confused, unable to understand what just happens between them at all. Shortly afterward, he is asked by someone else for his opinion about another person, pulling his attention away as the moment quietly slips past unnoticed. Meanwhile, Takashi's female friend goes with him to his house after class. She feels excited because she finally gets the chance to enter Takashi's room, something she has clearly been looking forward to for weeks. Takashi, on the other hand, struggles to keep himself calm, reminding himself that his only intention is to lend her the CD he promises earlier and nothing more. Inside the room, his female friend asks about how busy Takashi has been lately with school. Instead of answering directly, Takashi asks whether she is not planning to go home right away yet. Rather than responding to that concern, she invites Takashi to sit close to her, explaining that she does not want to leave after coming all the way to his place just now. Takashi cannot help but feel confused, quietly wondering why everything about this day feels so strange and unsettling to him. At the same time, back at school, the bespectacled male friend comes across personal information about Takashi that is spreading on the internet very rapidly. At first, he refuses to believe it, but the face shown in the circulated photos looks unmistakably similar to Takashi, making doubt creep in despite his reluctance to accept it. Meanwhile, at Takashi's house, the female friend feels increasingly thrilled simply by being inside his room with him. Her heart races, and in her excitement, she guides Takashi's hand toward her chest without warning. Takashi reacts in shock, completely unprepared for the sudden action from her. The girl, Yamada, then expresses her desire to be intimate with Takashi, explaining that she acts this way because she believes she loves him and wants to share those feelings with him openly. Before anything else can happen, the sound of a ringing phone suddenly comes from Yamada's bag nearby. Annoyed by the interruption, she answers the call immediately. It turns out to be one of Takashi's male friends, who asks whether Yamada is currently with Takashi right now. Yamada admits that she is at Takashi's house, which prompts the male friend to insist that she leave immediately without delay. Takashi waits alone in the room as Yamada steps away, and during that brief moment, he imagines that if she had ignored the call, everything might have gone further than it already has between them. Yamada soon returns, her expression completely changed from before. She confronts Takashi, accusing him of deceiving her all this time. Confused and unsettled, Takashi asks what she means by that accusation. Yamada explains that information about an old case spreads online the previous day across various websites, and she suspects that Takashi is the person involved in that incident. Takashi finds himself unable to deny it or explain anything at that moment. Frustrated and angry beyond measure, Yamada calls him a liar and storms out of the house. Takashi tries to stop her and follows after her, desperately trying to understand how everything collapses so quickly around him. Yamada begs Takashi to stay away from her right now, and in the chaos, she falls on the stairs with a cry. Takashi asks whether she is hurt and tries to help her immediately, even thinking about taking her to the hospital for treatment. However, Yamada refuses to let him come close, calling him a murderer before rushing away despite her injury and obvious pain. That night, Takashi checks the news on his phone in silence and is stunned to see that his personal information is now openly circulating online for everyone. He begins to wonder whether everyone already knows the truth about him by now. In that moment, he feels that everything he carefully builds for his new life starts to crumble before his eyes. The next day at school, rumors spread rapidly among the students throughout campus. Some say that Mada goes home with broken bones, while others claim that she is chased by Takashi while he shouts after her in panic. The students begin to question who Takashi really is as a person, Takashi arrives at school as usual, but this time, countless eyes follow him wherever he goes without exception. When he meets his two male friends, he greets them and asks about Yamada's condition with concern. One of them replies that no matter how well she recovers, she will still be left with scars for life. Takashi tries to apologize for frightening them, but both friends ignore him completely without responding. Kahilai, who witnesses the exchange from a distance nearby, immediately understands that information about Takashi has already spread everywhere. She senses that Takashi simply wants to return to a normal life once again, yet she believes that such a thing is no longer possible for him any longer. At another high school, students are also actively discussing the leaked personal details about Takashi among themselves. They know that he is currently living in the Chiba district under a new identity. One student decides to show the information to Sasaki during a break. When Sasaki sees it, painful memories she tries so hard to bury suddenly resurface, forcing their way back into her mind despite all her efforts to forget the past. In the principal's office, Takashi explains the incident involving Yamada in a calm but tense atmosphere inside the room. The teacher informs him that, according to Yamada's statement, the entire situation occurs because Takashi chases her aggressively that afternoon, and the teacher asks whether this account is true or not. Takashi admits that he does chase after Yamada, but he clarifies that he has no intention of making her fall or causing her any harm whatsoever. The teacher then adds that when Yamada falls, she claims that Takashi gives her the impression of someone who intends to kill her one day. Hearing this, Takashi feels frustrated and begins to question why Yamada forms such a terrifying impression of him in her mind. The teacher interprets Takashi's presence as something unsettling rather than openly violent, and that interpretation itself carries a sense of fear for others. Other teachers begin to question whether the principal is truly confident that Takashi is not at fault in this matter. The principal responds that Takashi immediately admits to chasing Yamada, which suggests honesty rather than denial of responsibility. Despite this, several teachers question why the school accepts Takashi in the first place, expressing that his situation feels deeply troubling and burdensome for the school as a whole. Meanwhile, in the classroom, Yamada returns and explains that, according to the doctor, there is swelling around her eye from the fall. The students ask whether there are any serious complications, and Yamada replies that it is only an injury for now. Some students insist that Takashi should leave the school and stop attending altogether from this point, while others find it hard to believe that he could do such a thing to a girl like her. Takashi overhears this conversation from outside the classroom door. Yamada continues by saying that, at that moment, she feels as if Takashi wants to kill her or plans to do something terrible to her, possibly even to violate her against her will. Overcome with anger and disbelief, Takashi suddenly enters the classroom and demands to know why Yamada thinks that way about him at all. Yamada becomes visibly frightened, and the surrounding students are struck by how intimidating Takashi's eyes look in that moment of tension. Later, at the shop where Takashi works part-time, his boss dismisses him in a gentle but firm manner after much consideration. The boss explains that fewer customers are coming in because of rumors suggesting that the shop is connected to dishonest business practices and shady dealings. When Takashi tries to respond to the explanation, the boss reassures him that he does not personally believe the rumors at all, but acknowledges that this is simply the reality they have to face right now. Takashi expresses his gratitude for being given the opportunity to work there in the first place despite everything. Another employee worries that Takashi might hold a grudge over the dismissal, but the boss tells that employee to be careful with their words from now on. When Takashi returns home, his mother greets him with a smile and asks whether he has worked that day as usual. Takashi answers that he does not have any shifts. He realizes that his mother still does not know what is happening at school behind the scenes. For a moment, he considers placing his school card on the table as a sign that he might not return to school anymore after this. However, his mother cheerfully mentions how glad she is that Takashi plans to go to the movies with his friends, adding that everyone is talking about how good the film is these days. As Takashi prepares to respond, he notices that his mother does not seem afraid of him at all in any way. He decides that he does not want this situation to trouble her, especially since she has done so much to give him a normal life once again. His mother says that she is looking forward to seeing Takashi enjoy himself for a change. Takashi replies that he is looking forward to it as well with a nod. In that moment, he makes a quiet decision not to let his mother worry about him any longer than necessary. He helps her with chores around the house that evening, and his mother thanks him. Unaware of the weight he continues to carry in silence every day. The next day, Sasaki comes to Takashi's school on her own, and the students immediately begin talking about her presence among themselves. Sasaki is determined not to let Takashi slip away again, because there is something important she needs to tell him in person. As she walks through the school grounds at a steady pace, she overhears students speaking about Takashi as a liar and a murderer without hesitation. Some of them also mention that the vice principal is afraid Takashi might return one day to take revenge on someone. Sasaki soon realizes that the people talking about Takashi are none other than his two male friends and Yamada themselves. Not long after, Takashi walks out of the school building by himself, and several students shout insults at him, telling him to return to prison or simply die already. Sasaki witnesses everything in silence from nearby. Tears begin to fall from her eyes as she wonders whether this is the kind of treatment Takashi endures every single day without relief. Unable to remain silent any longer, Sasaki calls out to him across the grounds. She reflects on how 3 years have already passed, yet everything has only become worse for him. She also suspects that Takashi may hate her after all this time. Sasaki then reveals that after Takashi is arrested, she never gets the chance to tell him that after being raped, what she truly wants is to see him again someday. Hearing this, Takashi breaks down in tears and reveals that all he ever wants during that time is to meet Sasaki once more than anything. They then go to a park together to talk quietly. Sasaki talks about how she now attends Nantoko High School as a student. Takashi is genuinely impressed, knowing that it is a prestigious school in her district, and he praises her for it with admiration. Sasaki asks whether Takashi is truly fine being around her after everything that has happened between them. Takashi answers honestly that he cannot pretend his life at his current school is normal or happy, but he feels that everything becomes equal the moment he sees Sasaki again. Sasaki recalls the students mocking Takashi earlier and feels a deep ache in her chest because of it. She then suggests that they exchange phone numbers, assuming that Takashi might not even own a phone yet. Takashi admits that he may be a bit old-fashioned, but he does have a phone that he receives as a Lunar New Year gift from his family. Sasaki feels relieved and happy to hear that, and they exchange contact information right away. Soon after, Sasaki says that she needs to head home before it gets late. Takashi is surprised to learn that Sasaki commutes back and forth to Yokohama every day, and he apologizes for taking up so much of her time that afternoon. They part ways at the train station with mixed emotions. While riding the train, Takashi sends a message saying that he is glad he gets to see Sasaki again after so long today, and he begins to think about inviting her out for a meal together someday soon. At the same time, Sasaki wants to apologize to Takashi because she truly understands how he has felt deep within himself ever since their elementary school days. Now Takashi carries the ruins of his own life like a burden on his shoulders, yet he still worries about protecting Sasaki from further pain. Back at school, a male student wearing glasses greets Sasaki, and she naturally holds his hand with quiet affection as they walk together. For Sasaki, it is difficult to find the words to tell Takashi that she already has someone she loves with all her heart. After returning home and finishing her bath, Sasaki notices that Takashi sends another message to her phone. The message contains an invitation to go to the aquarium together on Saturday during the weekend. At school the next day, Sasaki feels conflicted and unsure of what she should say to him honestly. On one hand, she knows that Takashi is genuinely excited about the idea of spending time with her once more again. On the other hand, she is already involved with the male student who wears glasses, and that reality weighs heavily on her thoughts throughout the day. In the school garden, the bespectacled student is quietly sketching in his notebook when he becomes aware of Sasaki's presence near the area. He notices her and acknowledges her with a small nod, prompting Sasaki to explain that she is simply taking a walk around the campus. She then asks whether he is working on assignments for the art club, but he explains that he is only passing the time for a little while. He asks whether Sasaki has any plans for Saturday, and mentions that he has managed to obtain 2 tickets to a new Van Gogh exhibition in the city. From Sasaki's earlier hesitation, he assumes that she may not be able to go with him that particular day. Sasaki becomes increasingly conflicted inside her heart because the bespectacled student, who is also her senior, directly invites her to go out together, and she herself wants to accept the invitation very much indeed. At that moment, Takashi sends another message, apologizing for disturbing her at this time and acknowledging that she may already have plans of her own. He expresses that he feels his sudden invitation might have been rude, and he shows that he respects her situation and personal choice. Sasaki is reminded of the cruel jeers she witnesses directed at Takashi at his school not long ago. After reflecting on this for several moments, she apologizes to the bespectacled student and tells him that she already has plans for Saturday with someone else. As she does so, Sasaki thinks about how Takashi is trying to build a happy life again from the beginning, and she feels an overwhelming sense of guilt, as if she is the only one standing beside him now through all this. When Saturday arrives, Takashi feels genuinely happy from deep inside as he walks together with Sasaki toward the aquarium under the clear sky. However, Sasaki remains quiet for most of the time during their outing, which makes Takashi uneasy and somewhat concerned. He senses something is on her mind, but Sasaki insists that nothing is wrong and explains that she is simply thinking about how long it has been since she last visits an aquarium like this before. This causes Takashi to recall the dolphin keychain that Sasaki once gives him many years earlier. He remembers clearly how precious that small gift becomes to him, something he cherishes deeply within his heart over the years. As this realization sinks in little by little, Takashi becomes cautious and feels the need to apologize internally, worried that he might have unintentionally brought up painful memories from the past. Sasaki reassures him through her demeanor, making it clear that he does not need to treat her as if she is the source of any trouble, and that she is truly fine at the moment. Takashi feels a quiet happiness growing inside him more and more, as the moment feels like a dream he once has, a future where he and Sasaki can be happy together, just the two of them, separate from the rest of the world around them entirely. Sasaki, meanwhile, feels a subtle sense of shame toward Takashi, knowing the truth she still cannot say out loud yet. She then points out an aquarium brochure near the entrance and explains that there is a special show being held, encouraging Takashi to go see it with her right away. Together, they watch the dolphin performance and genuinely enjoy the experience, sharing a rare moment of lightness and calm amid their troubles. Nearby, Takashi overhears a young man expressing a desire to kiss his partner, only to be gently refused because they are in a public place where everyone can see, a small, ordinary scene that contrasts quietly with the weight of Takashi and Sasaki's shared past and lingering scars. Takashi notices that most of the people around him seem to be spending time with their partners or loved ones. Sasaki senses his hesitation and asks whether something is bothering him deep inside today. Takashi then admits that he has been wanting to ask for a very long time whether Sasaki already has a boyfriend. He makes it clear to himself that he is only curious about her situation and that Sasaki does not need to mention any names at all if she prefers. Sasaki responds that she does not have a boyfriend and that she has never been on a date with anyone before. Hearing this, Takashi feels a sense of relief and calm wash over him, and he suggests that they move on to watch the next performance together without further delay. Inside, Sasaki reflects that there is someone she likes deep in her heart, yet fear holds her back from moving forward. She cannot force herself into a relationship, and even the idea of dating feels overwhelming to her right now. Physical closeness with men fills her with anxiety and lingering fear, and even talking about dating is enough to unsettle her emotions for quite some time. She cannot allow anyone to know about the assault in her past or the trauma, nor about the bespectacled boy named Sugita, whom she cares for. As these thoughts linger within her mind, Sasaki notices a message from Sugita saying that he will be late because the line is very long at the venue. Takashi soon returns carrying food and several drinks, and feels apologetic for making Sasaki wait all by herself. When Sasaki tries to pay, Takashi stops her, wanting to treat her instead for this occasion. He explains that he still has a fair amount of money left from his part-time work over the past months. Takashi shares that he has recently found a delivery job in the local area, and that this is the first job he genuinely enjoys doing every day. Hearing this makes Sasaki feel sincerely happy for him and his progress. Takashi then asks about Sasaki's plans after graduating from high school, showing interest in her future and personal goals. At that moment, a girl named Ida happens to see Sasaki together with a boy from a distance. After finishing their meal and taking a break, Sasaki and Takashi continue walking around the aquarium grounds. Sasaki feels that the day is truly enjoyable and pleasantly memorable. For Takashi, the best part is the sense of anonymity, as no one recognizes him here, allowing him to feel as though he can momentarily return to being a normal person once again for now. He suggests that next time they could go somewhere less crowded and more peaceful. Sasaki responds that simply hearing the words "next time" already fills her with excitement and quiet happiness. Eventually, they part ways near the station. On the journey home, Takashi reflects on how pleasant the day has been from beginning to end. At first, he feels anxious about many things weighing on him, but after speaking with Sasaki, he realizes that things turn out to be fine despite his worries. He assumes that Sasaki should already be on her way home as well by this point. When Takashi arrives near his house, he sees his mother standing outside, apologizing repeatedly to the property owner and promising to clean everything as soon as possible without any delay. From a short distance away, Takashi notices numerous graffiti marks covering parts of the house. His mother continues to bow and apologize for causing so much trouble to everyone involved. As she tries to scrub the markings away with visible effort, neighbors nearby whisper about the murderer, who supposedly lives there with his family. Watching from afar, Takashi cannot understand why someone innocent has to pay such a heavy price, why others choose not to end things cleanly, and instead keep dragging him deeper into what feels like an endless hell without any mercy. Meanwhile, Sasaki receives a phone call from Ida later that evening. Ida tells her that she sees Sasaki together with Takashi, and asks how long it has been going on between the two. The neighbors talk among themselves about the teenager involved in the Yokohama incident, believing that he lives in room 206 of the building. Fear spreads quietly between them, and they watch closely, waiting to see whether the family will eventually move away from the neighborhood. Inside the house, Takashi asks his mother whether she already knows about everything that has happened. She is fully aware that the information has spread across the internet for many people, and she admits that she tries to keep it away from him for as long as possible to protect him. She tells herself that she wants to face the situation with courage and determination, as long as Takashi can remain happy at school with his friends. Even so, Takashi cannot completely ignore the reality surrounding him on every side. Takashi reassures his mother that it is all right, and that he is dealing with it as best he can. Although the news has already reached his school and spread widely, he lies and claims that everyone there supports him without any judgment. In truth, he remembers clearly how Yamato once accused him in front of others, but he chooses not to mention it to his mother. Takashi asks his mother not to worry about him anymore from this point forward. His mother then wonders what truly happened on that day so many years ago, unable to fully grasp the weight of the events that changed everything. Meanwhile, in Yokohama, Ida waits quietly for Sasaki at their meeting place. When Sasaki arrives, Ida apologizes for calling her out like this, explaining that there is something that needs to be discussed privately between the two of them. Sasaki admits that she is indeed spending time with the man connected to that incident from the past. Ida reacts with confusion, pointing out internally that Sasaki is a witness to the murder, and that the person involved is the last thing Sasaki should have to face again under any circumstances. Ito assumes that Takashi may be forcing Sasaki to meet him against her wishes. Sasaki denies this completely without any hesitation. Sasaki explains that Takashi is nothing like how people describe him on social media or how he is portrayed in public discussions across the internet. She has known him since elementary school and understands his true nature better than most people. Sasaki describes how Takashi lives under constant hardship every single day without any escape. Ito acknowledges that Sasaki is genuinely kind, but also careless in this situation from her perspective, and warns herself that such kindness can be dangerous if taken too far. Sasaki lowers her head appearing drained and emotionally exhausted. Ida realizes that she may not know Sasaki well enough to decide what Sasaki should or should not do with her own life. Sasaki expresses gratitude for Ida's concern and sincere support and asks her not to worry too much, explaining that this matter exists only between herself and Takashi for the time being. She also asks Ida to keep this information private from everyone else. Ida understands the seriousness of this request almost immediately. Sasaki then turns and leaves the area behind. Before she goes too far, Ida calls out to her, letting her know that if Sasaki ever faces trouble, she should reach out, because Ida is willing to listen at any time as her friend and trusted companion. Sasaki feels deeply moved by those words and silently agrees before continuing on her way through the evening streets. At the high school where Takashi studies, he sits alone while the laughter of his classmates fills the room around him from every direction. He quietly searches for the person who vandalizes his house, considering the possibility that it is Yamada, since Yamada knows his home address better than others. Online posts do not reveal any information about where Takashi lives, which strengthens his suspicion even more strongly. As Takashi keeps watching him from across the room, Yamada notices the attention and reacts to it with visible discomfort. Takashi immediately withdraws and feels the need to apologize for staring so much. Takashi explains that someone leaves graffiti on his house the previous night without any warning. Yamato assumes that Takashi is accusing him and reacts defensively, insisting that someone like him would never do such a thing and would not even waste a moment near Takashi's home under any condition. Takashi backs down and apologizes again for the misunderstanding. Shortly after that, one of Takashi's male classmates brings up Takashi's relationship with his older sister during a conversation. The classmate mentions rumors that Takashi's sister now works at a nightclub late at night. Another male student with glasses adds that he hears her services can even be arranged online through certain websites. The boys continue speculating about how long she will keep doing that kind of work for a living. Hearing this, Takashi's anger finally breaks through its fragile limits. He lashes out and attacks his classmate without thinking clearly. Other students gather around in shock and growing concern, while some rush toward the teacher's office to call for help as fast as possible. In the middle of the chaos, Takashi comes back to his senses when Kahilai approaches and taps his shoulder from behind him. Takashi follows Kahilai away from the scene without putting up resistance. Behind them, Yamada loudly claims that Takashi is finally showing his true nature for everyone to see. Takashi feels grateful to Kahilai for stopping him and pulling him back before things go further and become irreversible. Kahilai makes it clear that he does not want to get involved with Takashi in any way, yet everything unfolds exactly as he expects to happen. Takashi is left confused by this reaction and attitude. When Kahilai turns to leave, Takashi tries to stop him for a moment. Kahilai acknowledges that he understands why Takashi loses his temper, since people constantly provoke and stir up trouble around him. At the same time, he warns Takashi not to present himself as someone who looks capable of killing without reason or restraint. Those words trigger Takashi's memory of his mother's question about that day long ago. He remembers how she believes that Takashi shows no signs of being able to kill or harm someone without reason or purpose. Perhaps that belief comes from a mother's love and trust, but she genuinely feels that she is not mistaken in seeing him as the same child he has always been at heart. Takashi reflects on this and feels regret deep inside, knowing that he has no clear explanation to offer. No matter what his fault is, he feels the need to apologize to his mother once again. Later, Takashi chooses to leave the house, using the excuse that he wants to check whether new graffiti appears again during the night. His mother watches him go, filled with quiet uncertainty and concern. While at school, Sasaki calls Takashi and tells him that one of her friends sees her together with him at the aquarium recently. Takashi grows anxious and worries about whether everything is all right between them. Sasaki explains that her friend is a good person, so she believes it is probably fine, even though she still feels slightly uneasy about it. Takashi assures himself that it does not matter too much. He understands that Sasaki does not want to remember what happens in the past any longer, and does not want others to know about it either. Because of that, Takashi resolves to continue protecting her from harm. For him, there is no turning back anymore from this path. At his workplace, Takashi's supervisor informs him that he will be training under a senior worker for the next few weeks ahead, and Takashi accepts this without complaint or hesitation. He then discovers that Kahilai is actually his senior at work as well. Kahilai assumes that the workplace is simply short on manpower these days. Kahilai mentions that he notices Takashi during the interview and already expects that Takashi will end up working there eventually. Although Kahilai truly does not want to be involved with him, he already knows who Takashi is even before everything spreads across social media platforms. Hearing this, Takashi starts to wonder how much Kahilai knows about that man from the incident years ago. After finishing work, Takashi walks home together with Kahilai under the evening sky. Along the way, Kahilai asks whether Takashi is simply exhausted because it is his first day on the job there. He also mentions that Takashi's muscles will likely ache the next day, as his body is not yet used to the physical strain and workload. Takashi responds with a light laugh of agreement, then wonders whether they should continue the conversation they start earlier that day. He remembers that Kahilai has already told him that he knows about what happens long before the incident spreads across the internet for everyone. Kahilai senses that Takashi might suspect him of being the one who leaks the information online to others. Takashi immediately denies that thought, making it clear that he does not see Kahilai that way at all. Kahilai points out that from Takashi's perspective, it is natural not to know whether he can truly be trusted or not. For Kahilai, however, finding out who Takashi really is comes easily, because he describes himself as Takashi's #1 observer, someone who pays close attention to him over time. Takashi feels confused by those words and description. Before he can ask for clarification, Kahilai prepares to leave the area. Takashi asks Kahilai to wait for a moment before going. Kahilai then explains that on October 1st, exactly 3 years ago, after Takashi kills that teacher, people on social media begin spreading information about him everywhere online. Over time, they finally manage to identify Takashi's workplace and school, which leads to widespread chaos around his life and reputation. Kahilai senses a strong obsession behind those actions, more than usual, as if someone is fixated on Takashi for years. He believes that these people carry deep hatred toward him inside their hearts. After saying this, they part ways and head home separately for the evening. When Takashi arrives home, his mother greets him at the doorway. She explains that she meets the landlord earlier, and the landlord asks them to move out of the property. Because of that, she plans to save as much money as possible so they can afford to relocate somewhere else. Hearing this, Takashi apologizes for causing so much trouble and burdening her over the years of hardship. His mother gently shifts the mood with a smile and invites him to have dinner, reminding him to wash his hands first before eating. Takashi follows her instruction without complaint or resistance. While preparing the meal, his mother mentions that Kanoko comes home today for a visit after some time. Takashi immediately wonders whether Kanoko is doing well these days. His mother reassures him, explaining that Kanoko is currently dating someone, and that it has been a long time since she last sees Kanoko's smile like that with happiness. Takashi falls into thought about his older sister, then decides to call her, carrying quiet concern mixed with hope in his heart as he reaches out. On the other side, Kanoko's boyfriend informs her that there is a phone call for her right now. When Kanoko sees the caller's name, she reacts with visible surprise on her face, which makes her boyfriend wonder what is wrong with her. Kanoko then asks for permission to step outside for a moment to answer. After answering the call, Takashi apologizes for calling her so late at night without warning. Kanoko immediately asks whether Takashi needs something urgent or important. Takashi explains that he truly wants to apologize, not only because of what is written about him on the internet everywhere online, but also because people are now talking about Kanoko as well behind her back. The situation makes him feel deeply guilty and ashamed for dragging his sister into the rumors and accusations. Kanoko then mentions that her boyfriend is about to leave, so she intends to end the call before long. Takashi stops her for a moment and asks about Ken, wondering whether Kanoko has heard anything about him during that time recently. Takashi recalls that after he last talks with Kanoko, he tries to call Ken's house, but cannot reach anyone at all. Kanoko explains that because of Takashi's situation, Ken is no longer able to attend school as before. Hearing this, Takashi is completely taken aback by the revelation. Kanoko continues by explaining that Ken firmly believes Takashi does not commit the murder. And because Ken talks about Takashi every day to others, he becomes isolated by others around him. Kanoko relays what Ken's older sibling tells her, describing how Ken is bullied and pushed away by classmates. Takashi realizes that, because of his own circumstances, Ken is suffering as well. As Takashi's closest friend, Ken ends up hurting himself socially, and Takashi wonders whether Ken now harbors resentment toward him because of it. After saying this much, Kanoko says goodbye, and the call comes to an end for the night. Takashi remains stunned after the call has finished. Kahilai's earlier words echo in his mind, especially about people who carry deep hatred toward him for years. The next day in Yokohama, Sasaki's friends excitedly talk about a sale where a famous brand is offering a 30% discount for customers. They invite Sasaki to join them that day. Sasaki does not feel particularly interested in branded items, but her friends insist, saying that she is wasting her beauty if she does not dress more fashionably and stylishly. They keep urging her to come along with them. At that moment, Ida overhears their conversation and asks whether the three girls are planning to go out together after school. After they confirm it, Ida says that she also wants to buy some new clothes for herself and suggests going together as a group. The group reacts with excitement and enthusiasm. However, Sasaki's friends start wondering why Ida wants to join them and how she even knows them in the first place. Sasaki then admits that she only meets Ida not long ago by chance. Her friends are surprised and ask when that happens exactly. Sasaki explains that it is about a week ago or so. The girls praise Sasaki, saying that Ida is exceptionally beautiful, by any standard, almost like Aphrodite, with perfect grades at school, and a position in the student council as well. After that, Sasaki walks after Ida and calls out to her from behind. Ida gently tells Sasaki to relax for a moment, reminding her that Sasaki's secret is not something she would ever share with anyone under any circumstance. Ida then asks whether Sasaki ever dates Sugita at all. Sasaki feels caught off guard by the question all of a sudden. Ida mentions that she once sees Sasaki and Sugita walking home together after classes. Sasaki quickly explains that the situation is not what it looks like, that it is merely a coincidence because they happen to walk along the same road toward home, and that she does not date Sugita in any way. Hearing that explanation, Ida says she can finally feel at ease about it, which leaves Sasaki confused and puzzled. Suddenly, Sugita appears and greets Ida with a smile. Sugita notices Ida and Sasaki standing together nearby. Ida casually mentions that she and Sasaki are just talking about Sugita a moment ago. Sugita becomes curious about what they are discussing between themselves. Ida laughs it off and dismisses it as nothing important or serious. At that moment, Sasaki realizes that Ida and Sugita already know each other quite well, and she begins to suspect that Sugita might have feelings for Ida deep inside. The story continues as Takashi is now in Yokohama, and he reflects on how 3 entire years have already passed since the last time he saw Ken, his only close friend. As he arrives, Takashi steps off the bus and pauses there for a moment. Even after all this time, he can still feel his heart racing the instant he returns to this place. Deep inside, Takashi once believed that he would never come back here again. Yet despite that determination, his feet have brought him back. As he walks ahead, Takashi notices 2 male students running while enthusiastically talking about an anime airing. One of them is obviously out of breath, struggling to match the other's pace. The sight instantly brings back memories of the past, when Ken would invite him to run together, and Takashi was always the one left panting behind. Those memories make him long for those days even more, and at the same time, he realizes that he is about to see Ken's face again, after such a long time apart. The farther Takashi walks, the more students begin to appear around him. Groups of students are occupied discussing the midterm exams they have recently finished, filling the streets with ordinary conversations about school. Seeing and hearing all of this, Takashi thinks he should get through the junior high school area as quickly as he can. In reality, he still feels uneasy and somewhat embarrassed walking through this place. but he pushes himself onward because this road is the direct route to Ken's house. After walking for some time, Takashi eventually reaches the entrance of the junior high school. He pauses briefly and silently looks toward the school building. At that moment, countless memories from his junior high school days flood back into his mind. He remembers the days he spent with Ken, the joy he felt when he ended up in the same class as Sasaki, the ordinary moments they shared inside the classroom, and the times he trained together with Ken. Alongside those memories, he also recalls Sasaki's smile from back then, a memory that remains vividly engraved in his heart. However, not every memory that returns is a pleasant one. Takashi also remembers the moment he killed Yamashita, and the image of Sasaki's terrified face as she witnessed Yamashita's death comes back as well. Those memories become too heavy for him to bear, leaving him unable to move any farther. Takashi thinks that he should never have come back here, and that returning to this place was a mistake. Suddenly, a teacher whom Takashi recognizes approaches him and asks whether he is feeling all right or if something is wrong. Startled by the unexpected encounter, Takashi panics and runs away from the junior high school without turning back, continuing until he reaches the front of Ken's house. As he stands there and lifts his hand toward the doorbell, Takashi hesitates. He wonders if Ken no longer wants anything to do with him after everything that has happened. Even with that fear in his heart, Takashi gathers his courage and presses the doorbell. Ever since the rumor spread, Takashi is worried that Ken might have been the one who leaked his personal information. Even so, Takashi admits to himself that he has no real evidence to blame Ken. That uncertainty is exactly why he comes here, because he wants to learn the truth and discover whether Ken is truly responsible or not. After the doorbell rings, Ken's mother asks who is outside. With his body trembling, Takashi introduces himself as the one standing at the door. Rather than welcoming him, Ken's mother tells Takashi to leave immediately, but Takashi refuses to go. When no further response comes, Takashi raises his voice and desperately begs her to let him see Ken just this once because there is something important he needs to tell him. Ken's mother insists there is no reason for Takashi to speak with Ken anymore, and blames him for destroying her son's life. Once again, she orders Takashi to go home. During the exchange, Ken quietly watches everything from behind without saying a word. Takashi continues pleading, wishing only to apologize at least this one time. Consumed by despair, Takashi breaks down in tears, no longer able to suppress his emotions. Ken's mother demands that Takashi stop, but at that very moment, Ken finally steps forward and asks his mother to allow Takashi inside. A short time later, Ken's mother opens the door and makes it clear that she will never forgive Takashi. She then escorts Takashi upstairs toward Ken's room, leading him through the staircase. As Takashi climbs the stairs, he realizes that 3 long years have passed since the last time he walked along this very path. Every step reminds him of how much distance time has created between them. When Ken's mother reaches the door and prepares to open it, Takashi imagines Ken telling him that he has arrived too late, as though those words are already waiting behind the door. Contrary to what he expected, the scene inside Ken's room leaves him stunned. The room is cluttered with belongings scattered everywhere, giving it an immediate sense of disorder. Ken himself looks noticeably thinner, and his hair has grown long enough to partially cover his face. Takashi immediately realizes that Ken no longer resembles the Ken he remembers from their junior high school years. The difference is so striking that Takashi struggles to process it. When Ken's mother calls out to him, Ken indicates that it is fine because he wants to talk with Takashi alone. However, Ken's mother does not feel comfortable leaving the two of them together, so she chooses to remain in the room with them. Ken reflects on how horrifying the situation is, and Takashi can only remain silent in response. Ken expresses that in just 3 years, his life has turned into what Takashi is now seeing. With his body trembling, Takashi finally apologizes to Ken. He explains that he hears about what happens from his older sister, learning that Ken stands up for him when no one else is willing to do so, and that Ken is then dragged into Takashi's problems as a result. Ken falls silent, and his thoughts drift back to their junior high school days, that he remembers overhearing 3 male students planning to vandalize Takashi's house. Upon hearing that conversation, Ken tries to stop them. Instead of backing down, The three boys begin to bully him and question what benefit there is for Ken in protecting Takashi. After being beaten badly, Ken insists that seeing Takashi's house damaged would make him feel sad, and that Takashi would also be hurt when he returns home. Because of that, Ken is attacked once again by the three boys. For Ken, the following half-year feels like living in hell. He also explains that no one wants to know anyone associated with Takashi, and over time, this isolation becomes something he grows used to, making it easier for him to stay as he is. Hearing this, Takashi is left stunned. He then wonders why Ken goes so far for his sake. Ken explains that it is because he and Takashi are close friends, or at least that is what Ken believes. Upon hearing this, tears begin to fall from Takashi's eyes, and he breaks down in front of Ken. Ken, however, remains convinced about the incident. He believes that Takashi must have his own reasons. Takashi falls silent once more. When Takashi is about to speak, Ken reassures him that there is no need to worry, because Ken does not intend to force Takashi to say anything he is not ready to say. Ken makes it clear that he is willing to wait for as long as it takes until Takashi decides to explain his reasons. Takashi remains quiet, and after that, Ken takes out his phone and suggests exchanging phone numbers, because Ken no longer has any friends to do something like this with. Takashi feels ashamed of himself, realizing that even late at night, Ken remains his closest friend. With that awareness, Takashi apologizes for ever doubting Ken. At the same time, his thoughts begin to wander as he questions who is responsible for leaking his identity onto social media. When Takashi checks the platform in question, he is startled to find a post that talks about him meeting an old friend. The content immediately unsettles him, and his unease deepens. Takashi then turns his gaze toward Ken, who appears focused on his phone and seems occupied with something on the screen. Takashi wonders what Ken is doing with his phone and asks him about it, but Ken does not respond. Driven by anxiety, Takashi tries to take Ken's phone while questioning whether Ken is the one who exposes his personal information. At that moment, Takashi's own phone rings, and a message appears from Ken, expressing a wish to keep meeting Takashi in the future. Ken clarifies that he is only sending a message to Takashi, and then asks what Takashi is doing. Caught off guard, Takashi panics and hurriedly tries to apologize. Ken presses further, questioning what Takashi believes he is doing, and whether Takashi thinks that Ken is the one who betrays him. Ken begins to suspect that this is the real reason Takashi comes to see him. Overcome with emotion, Ken lashes out at Takashi, expressing that he always believes in Takashi and still regards him as his best friend. The tension escalates, and Ken's mother, who hears the commotion, enters the room. She is shocked to see Ken attacking Takashi and demands to know what is happening. She then orders Takashi to leave the house. As Takashi prepares to go, Ken fixates on Takashi's appearance, questioning why Takashi is still wearing a school uniform, while Ken's own life has fallen into such a state. Ken then labels Takashi as a murderer. Those words wound both of them deeply, leaving lasting pain on each side. Takashi walks out of Ken's house with heavy steps, his mind filled with memories of Ken's sincerity, when he once explains that he helps Takashi simply because that is what a true friend should do. In the middle of the street, Takashi finally breaks down and cries. He understands that Ken is not at fault, yet he cannot bring himself to fully trust Ken. The realization hurts him even more, because earlier he intends to tell Ken everything. In the end, Takashi makes a firm decision to reveal the real story to Ken someday, hoping that Ken will listen and understand that Takashi is not the murderer. In a certain place, 3 female students feel tired after spending time shopping together. They express their gratitude to Ida because Ida helps them throughout the process, and this makes them believe that Ida knows a great deal about fashion. While listening to their conversation, Sasaki quietly wonders in her thoughts about the fact that Ida knows Sugita, and she begins to question what kind of relationship Ida has built with Sugita. One of the girls notices Sasaki drifting into her thoughts and calls her out for daydreaming. They assume that Sasaki is thinking about Sugita, but Sasaki immediately denies it. The same girl then shares that Sugita and Ida have already known each other since their 9th grade year. Curiosity follows, and she asks whether Sugita is also handsome back when he is still in junior high school. Ida explains that she and Sugita are both part of the student council at that time, and she adds that Sugita is not the type of boy she is attracted to. Hearing this explanation, Sasaki feels a sense of relief settling in her chest. Not long after, one of the girls suggests singing together, and Ida agrees without hesitation. Suddenly, Sasaki receives a phone call from Takashi. She asks for permission to step outside so she can answer the call properly, then leaves in a hurry. This behavior immediately makes Ida suspicious, as she senses that something important might be going on. Sasaki answers the call, and Takashi apologizes for calling her so suddenly. Sasaki asks what is happening, and Takashi explains that he is currently in Yokohama. He tells her that he comes there to meet Ken, and at the same time, someone has leaked his personal information on the internet. Because of that, he admits that he has been suspecting Ken. Takashi expresses how useless he feels, especially because he even considers the possibility that Ken is the one who writes about him. Yet now he no longer knows what to believe. After sharing his situation, Takashi confesses that he wants to meet Sasaki because he feels deeply depressed and wants to talk with her. Sasaki understands Takashi's feelings and asks where he is at the moment. Takashi is now standing in the place where his house is located 3 years ago. After ending the call, he looks around and realizes that the area feels strangely small, with no sign of his former home remaining. Instead, he notices a mural stating that this place is once the home of Man A, who is known as the murderer of a teacher. That sight pulls Takashi back into his past. He remembers the moment when he strikes Yamashita with a baseball bat, causing Yamashita to become furious and attempt to attack him, leaving Takashi overwhelmed by fear. Yamashita demands that Takashi promise not to tell anyone about what he has seen. Takashi remains silent, frozen in fear, and Yamashita attacks him as a result. After that, Yamashita reveals that he has recorded a video of Sasaki while she is naked, confident that Takashi would not want to see Sasaki humiliated in such a way. While Yamashita continues to intimidate Takashi, Sasaki quietly picks up the baseball bat. Feeling cornered, Takashi urges Sasaki to leave immediately. Instead of escaping, Sasaki swings the baseball bat and strikes Yamashita, crushing his head and killing him. Both Takashi and Sasaki are left in shock, unable to move or speak. Sasaki then drops the baseball bat and repeatedly apologizes, while Takashi checks whether Yamashita is truly dead. At the same time, Takashi desperately wonders what he should do next. In that moment, Takashi recalls something someone once tells him, that children under the age of 14 cannot be prosecuted for any criminal act. The person who says this is Takashi's father. In the past, his father explains that many people support the limitations on juvenile punishment because they are meant to protect and rehabilitate young people. However, there are also many critics who argue that such laws are too protective of young offenders, especially those who are still under the age of 14. Takashi comes to the realization that he cannot be prosecuted. With that awareness, he moves closer to Sasaki and gently wipes Yamashita's blood from her cheeks. In that moment, Takashi resolves himself and determines that he will protect Sasaki no matter what happens. He asks Sasaki to tell the others that it is Takashi who kills Yamashita, and he reassures her that she does not need to worry. Because this involves juvenile actions, he believes it will take time before everything returns to normal. Takashi promises himself that he will meet Sasaki again soon, even though he knows that he must deliberately put himself in danger, because the police will inevitably investigate the case. Above all else, Takashi is determined to protect Sasaki. Takashi then picks up the baseball bat and convinces himself that the teacher in front of him is no longer human. With that thought, he strikes Yamashita's already lifeless head once more. As he remembers the sensation of that moment, Takashi believes that if he holds on to this feeling, he will be able to carry it through until the very end. The recollection of those memories finally fades, and Takashi is pulled back into the present when his phone begins to ring. Through the call, Sasaki apologizes and explains that she cannot meet Takashi in this area. Someone has previously seen her together with Takashi, and that person begins to suspect her. Takashi understands the situation and apologizes in return. He explains that information about him continues to leak, making it extremely dangerous for anyone to be seen meeting with him. Takashi then asks whether Sasaki remembers what truly happens at that time. Sasaki does not recall the details, and the last thing she remembers is seeing Takashi's eyes. After that, her memory jumps to being in the hospital, where she later learns about the incident through television reports. From there, Sasaki comes to believe that Takashi kills Yamashita in order to protect her. Takashi does not blame Sasaki for her missing memories, as he understands that what she witnesses is far too horrifying for anyone to fully remember. In his heart, Takashi believes that if Sasaki's memories ever return, she may not be able to accept the truth, that it is actually Sasaki who kills Yamashita. When Sasaki asks whether Takashi is going home, he answers affirmatively. Sasaki then mentions that she might want to study for her English exam, and Takashi encourages her to do her best. After that, the call ends, leaving Takashi alone with his thoughts and a heavy feeling in his chest. Without realizing it, the time has already reached 10 at night, and Takashi knows that he needs to go home. As he heads toward the bus stop, he considers whether he should tell his mother about everything. While waiting there, he suddenly notices Sasaki walking nearby. He approaches her and calls out to her, but Sasaki turns her attention in a different direction. She looks towards Sugita instead and smiles brightly at him. Sugita asks whether Sasaki is heading home, and she confirms it, explaining that going to the art store would already be too late. Sugita then suggests having coffee together, as he wants to show her the theme of his painting. Sasaki hesitates briefly, causing Sugita to assume that she might have somewhere else to go. However, Sasaki admits that she has no particular plans, and Sugita once again invites her to have coffee. Sasaki agrees happily and goes along with him. From a distance, Takashi witnesses the entire scene in silence. As he watches them, Takashi reflects on the day of the incident, realizing that he defends Sasaki, because he believes she would be completely broken if he does not do so. Now, seeing her life seemingly return to normal, Takashi feels foolish. He begins to think that Sasaki may no longer want to spend time with him at all. His thoughts then drift to Kanoko, to his mother, and to Ken, all of whom suffer because of him. After holding on to those thoughts for a moment, Takashi turns away and leaves. On October 4th, 2014, a doctor informs Sasaki's parents that Sasaki is suffering from memory loss. The doctor explains that this condition most likely occurs at the moment when Sasaki witnesses the murder. According to his hypothesis, Sasaki experiences a severe psychological shock that causes her brain to isolate itself from the traumatic event, resulting in her inability to remember anything related to the incident. Sasaki's father asks whether Sasaki truly remembers nothing at all about Takashi, who is believed to have killed her homeroom teacher. Sasaki responds with an apology, unable to give the answer he seeks. One of the detectives explains that Takashi has confessed that he gets into a fight with Yamashita and later encounters him again, while Yamashita is on his way to the clubroom. This is the account Takashi gives to the teacher and authorities. The detective asks whether Sasaki remembers anything related to this explanation. In her heart, Sasaki knows that Takashi's explanation is not true, because she believes that Takashi kills Yamashita for her sake. However, she is unable to say this out loud. Her body begins to tremble, and seeing this, Sasaki's mother apologizes to the detectives and asks them to stop the interrogation. The two detectives then leave the hospital room. Outside, one of the detectives questions whether the interrogation is pointless. The other detective responds that it is not meaningless, but after seeing so much blood, he believes it might be better if Sasaki does not remember anything at all. Back in the room, Sasaki's mother gently tries to calm her down. At the same time, memories of Yamashita's treatment toward her resurface in Sasaki's mind, making her feel nauseous. Her mother grows increasingly worried as she watches her daughter struggle. Sasaki herself feels that she lacks the courage to tell the truth. She remembers that there is evidence of Yamashita's actions stored on her phone, something the police never discover. Before reporting the crime, Takashi destroys that phone. Sasaki comes to feel that, in the end, she becomes a coward who prioritizes her own survival over the truth. In the present, Sasaki is looking at one of Sugita's paintings. Sugita asks for her opinion, and Sasaki responds that for some reason, The painting makes her feel nostalgic. It reminds her of the first time she meets Sugita, especially because Sugita expresses the same feeling earlier. Sugita assumes that Sasaki must think he is a strange person, but Sasaki does not see him that way at all. Sugita apologizes for trying to invite Sasaki to the art club back then, and Sasaki explains that Sugita does not know about her involvement in the incident. Sugita expresses that regardless of everything, he is glad that he gets to know Sasaki. Hearing this, Sasaki smiles brightly. Sugita then steps closer to Sasaki, causing her to panic. At that moment, Sasaki's phone rings, and Sugita alerts her to it, prompting her to answer quickly. Sugita wonders whether it is all right for her to take the call there, but Sasaki does not respond and moves away to answer the phone. On the call, Takashi asks whether he can meet Sasaki now. Sasaki apologizes, but before she can explain her reason, Takashi reassures her that it is fine, saying that he understands she cannot meet him today. Takashi also mentions that he sees her the previous night, together with a man. Sasaki is shocked to realize that Takashi has seen her with Sugita. Takashi then asks whether Sasaki remembers the shrine where they meet during a festival several years ago. Sasaki answers that she will wait for Takashi there after school. After ending the call, Sasaki hears Sugita calling her name. Seeing her flustered state, Sugita asks whether she is all right. Sasaki insists that she is fine, even though her mind is filled with confusion about what she should do and what she should say to Takashi. Sugita suddenly embraces Sasaki and kisses her forehead. At that instant, Sasaki's trauma resurfaces, and she imagines herself being held by Yamashito instead. Sugita gently tells her that she does not need to act strong in front of him. Overwhelmed, Sasaki pushes Sugita away and breaks free from his embrace, leaving Sugita stunned. Sasaki apologizes briefly and runs away from him. As she leaves, frustration fills her thoughts. She questions why Yamashita's face continues to appear in her mind, even when she is held by someone she likes. No matter what, the sensation feels deeply repulsive to her. With her emotions in turmoil, Sasaki heads toward the shrine, determined to meet Takashi there. At the shrine, Takashi is already waiting for Sasaki. When she arrives, Takashi feels the need to apologize for calling her so suddenly, because he wants to speak with her directly and face to face. He then asks whether Sasaki has feelings for the man she is with the previous day. Sasaki falls silent for a brief moment before admitting but she does like him. Hearing this, Takashi feels a sharp pain in his chest. Sasaki tries to explain her reasons, but Takashi cuts in and says that it is a good thing, because Sasaki seems to be enjoying a normal life and a normal relationship. Sasaki is taken aback by this reaction, and explains that she is not trying to enjoy herself in that way. Takashi questions whether that is truly the case, because from his perspective, Sasaki appears to be living her life well when he sees her the night before. His frustration builds, and he expresses how it looks as if nothing ever happens, even though the truth is that Sasaki is the one who kills Yamashita. At those words, Sasaki is left stunned. Her memories suddenly break open, and she recalls the sensation of blood splashing onto her body at the moment she strikes Yamashita. Takashi continues, explaining that he is merely trapped inside that crime. He describes how Yamashita's face is completely destroyed after being struck by Sasaki, and how afterward, the lives of Takashi's family and Ken's family fall into chaos. He acknowledges that it is an undeniable crime, no matter how it is framed. The weight of everything overwhelms Takashi, plunging him into deep despair until he begins to laugh in a hollow, broken way. He feels that he is the one who drags everyone into this situation, and because of that, he believes he is responsible for everything that goes wrong. Sasaki's eyes fill with tears, and she asks whether it is already too late to confess everything. Takashi pauses for a moment before making it clear that he does not want Sasaki to confess. What he wants instead is simply to remain by her side. He then asks a question he has never dared to ask before, whether Sasaki is in a romantic relationship with Sugita. Sasaki explains that when Sugita touches her, she is overwhelmed by memories of being raped by Yamashita. In those moments, even the person she likes begins to resemble Yamashita in her mind. Sasaki understands that loving someone else is impossible for her, no matter who that person is, and for that reason, she rejects Sugita. Takashi reflects on the fact that Sasaki is only 13 years old when the assault happens, something he cannot even begin to imagine, just as no one else truly can. He then confesses that he still loves Sasaki, and that even if Sasaki rejects him, he is willing to accept everything. To him, her feelings matter more than anything else. Sasaki breaks down in tears, admitting that she does not know how to respond to Takashi's feelings. She expresses her gratitude toward him nonetheless. For Takashi, this is not a problem at all, because being able to stay with her is enough. Elsewhere, inside the press office of Weekly Attack, Kobayashi is deeply focused on examining the personal information of Man A. A male colleague observes that Man A appears to have grown up as an ordinary individual. Kobayashi questions whether his colleague is truly certain that this person is the one they are looking for. The colleague wonders what Kobayashi is trying to imply. Kobayashi then raises a final, unsettling question, asking whether this Man A has already killed someone. At school, Sasaki finds herself thinking about the fact that Takashi already knows about her past. She is aware that Takashi accepts her rejection more deeply and sincerely than anyone else ever could. In her mind, Sasaki considers the possibility that she might be able to feel happiness if she is with Takashi. At the same time, she wonders whether it is truly possible for her to remain close to a man who cannot freely touch her without triggering fear. That fear continues to grow inside her, because whenever she thinks of Takashi, the image of Yamashita still appears more vividly in her mind. Not long after, Sasaki is called by her friend Higura. Higura asks whether Sasaki has heard the recent rumor spreading around, claiming that Sasaki has dumped Sugita. The question catches Sasaki off guard. Higura explains that it seems a girl witnesses the moment when Sasaki pushes Sugita away, and she asks what actually happens. Sasaki feels confused and unsettled upon realizing that someone sees her at that moment. Soon after, Sasaki overhears several girls talking about her nearby. When they notice that Sasaki hears them, they begin blaming one another for being too loud. Suddenly, Ida appears and openly states that she is in a bad mood. The group of girls is startled by her presence. Ida expresses her strong dislike toward people who talk about others behind their backs. Hearing this, the girls apologize to both Ida and Sasaki. Sasaki responds that an apology is unnecessary, explaining that she is fine. Even so, she expresses her gratitude to Ida for stepping in. Ida then asks whether Sasaki has some time to talk. The two of them move to the corridor and begin a quiet conversation. Ida mentions that things have been difficult lately, and Sasaki agrees with that sentiment. Sasaki then wonders whether Ida wants to talk about Sugita, but Ida clarifies that while she does want to mention him, what matters more is that she wants to ask Sasaki about Man A. The question shocks Sasaki. Ida admits that she hates believing such things, yet she still asks whether Sasaki is continuing to stay in contact with Man A. Sasaki asks what makes Ida think that way. Ida explains that when they are at the karaoke place before, she sees Sasaki receive a phone call and then immediately head to the restroom. Sasaki begins to wonder how much Ida notices. Ida admits that she does not hear much because the place is noisy, but she senses that something is wrong from Sasaki's expression at the time. Based on that, Ida suspects that Manny might be forcing Sasaki into something. Almost instinctively, Sasaki denies it, insisting that Manny is not that kind of person. She believes that Ida misunderstands what happens back then. After saying that, Sasaki apologizes because she needs to leave. Left alone, Ida becomes convinced that Sasaki is not good at lying. From that moment, Ida silently resolves to protect Sasaki in her own way. Meanwhile, in Chiba, Takashi sits quietly in his classroom, gazing out through the window while lost in thought. His mind keeps returning to Sasaki's expression when she thanks him. As he reflects on that moment, Takashi suddenly realizes something important. Without fully noticing it before, he understands that he has already confessed his feelings to Sasaki. Suddenly, Kawaii appears beside Takashi, catching him off guard. Takashi is startled and wonders why Kawaii is there. Kawaii explains that she is simply captivated because Takashi looks like he is deeply lost in thought. She also notices that Takashi's cheeks are slightly flushed. Kawaii casually remarks that Manny is not so bad either, which makes Takashi assume that Kawaii is clearly not praising him. Trying to shift the situation, Takashi asks whether there is something he can help her with. Kawaii then brings up a matter related to work. She asks whether Takashi is willing to switch work shifts on Sunday, because she has something important that she needs to take care of. Takashi agrees without hesitation, as it does not cause him any trouble. Hearing this, Kawaii expresses her relief and says that Takashi has saved her. The two of them continue chatting comfortably for a while. Their conversation is abruptly interrupted when Yamada's voice rings out in panic, announcing that his wallet has gone missing. His friends immediately suggest that Yamada should try looking for it first. A male student wearing glasses assumes that Yamada might have dropped it somewhere. Yamada insists that the last time he uses his wallet is in the cafeteria, and he emphasizes that he has owned that wallet for 5 years. The boy with glasses then proposes that they all go and check the cafeteria together. When Yamada notices Takashi, he recalls that Takashi has been coming from the music room earlier. Takashi confirms this and asks why it matters, while also mentioning that he intends to go to the restroom. At that point, Yamada demands that Takashi show what is inside his bag. Takashi is taken aback and immediately insists that he does not take Yamada's wallet. Yamada persists and pressures Takashi to reveal the contents of his bag, suspecting that Takashi refuses because he is the one who takes it. Kawaii steps in and states that this is not what is happening. She suggests the possibility that Yamada might be setting Takashi up, and she even questions whether Yamada himself could have slipped the wallet into Takashi's bag. Yamada quickly denies ever doing such a thing. Kawaii then presses him, asking whether that is truly the case. Raising his voice, Yamada lashes out and questions why Kawaii always takes Takashi's side. Kawaii remains silent in response. Yamada then declares that what matters most to him is getting his wallet back, and he goes as far as labeling Takashi a thief. Takashi stays completely silent, which only fuels Yamada's anger further, prompting him to shout at Takashi once again. Soon after, one of the female students holds up a wallet and asks whether it belongs to Yamada. Yamada immediately takes the wallet from her. The male student with glasses asks where she finds it, and the girl explains that the wallet is lying beside the vending machine in the cafeteria. Hearing this, Yamada becomes visibly embarrassed and admits that he probably drops it somewhere without realizing it. Other students speak up and point out that Yamada is being unfair because he has already accused Takashi as if he is a criminal. One of Yamada's friends suggests that Yamada should apologize to Takashi. Yamada refuses to do so. He insists that it is ridiculous for Takashi to still be attending this school, because he believes Takashi should have left already. Yamada also brings up Takashi's injury, questioning whether Takashi even understands how serious it is. He adds that he does not want to see Takashi again, arguing that it would be dangerous if Takashi were to hate him due to a misunderstanding. In response, Takashi calmly states that the injury is indeed his own fault and offers an apology to Yamada. This reaction catches Yamada off guard, and without saying anything further, Yamada turns around and runs away. Takashi and Kawaii remain standing there in silence, watching Yamada disappear from sight. Kawaii remarks that situations like this happen because of a criminal act. Takashi agrees and reflects that nothing can truly be resolved anymore. Kawaii agrees with him as well, because she comes to the same conclusion. Since Takashi has killed someone, any incident that occurs around him will immediately make him the prime suspect, just like what happens this time. Takashi acknowledges that her words are true. Kawaii then asks whether Takashi feels any regret about what happens back then. Takashi does not answer her question. Instead, he quietly excuses himself and leaves. As he walks away, Takashi reflects inwardly. He knows that he does feel regret for what he does, but at the same time, he has already made his decision to protect Sasaki. In reality, it is Sasaki who kills Yamashita. However, Takashi believes that Sasaki would never be able to bear the weight of the truth, that she kills the man who rapes her. For the sake of the person he loves, Takashi chooses to carry that burden himself, even if it means taking on half of the pain and responsibility. While Takashi is on his way home, a teacher suddenly calls out to him in a hurried manner. Takashi wonders whether this is related to the wallet incident earlier. The teacher quickly clarifies that it has nothing to do with that matter, and informs Takashi that his mother has been taken to the hospital. Hearing this, Takashi is left standing still, unable to move or respond. The teacher urges Takashi to listen carefully, and explains that Takashi's mother is found unconscious at home and is now being treated at Chiba Hospital. Hearing this, Takashi panics. He runs out to the street, stops a taxi, and asks the driver to take him to the hospital as quickly as possible. As the car moves forward, Takashi is overwhelmed by guilt. He feels that everything happening now is his fault, because he knows his mother has been enduring hardship and exhaustion for a long time while carrying the burden of life as a single parent. When he arrives at the hospital, Takashi immediately asks where his mother's room is located. The receptionist informs him that his mother is staying in room 302 and briefly checks his identity, asking whether he is truly her son. Takashi does not wait for anything else and rushes toward the elevator, silently hoping that his mother is safe. Upon reaching room 302, he sees that his mother has already regained consciousness. Takashi checks on her condition, wanting to know whether she is all right. His mother explains that she is simply experiencing extreme fatigue. She goes on to explain that she does not go to work earlier that day, which causes her manager to worry and come to check on her. It is the manager who finds her collapsed at home. She also mentions that she never tells her manager where Takashi goes to school. As Takashi looks at her more closely, he notices that she has lost weight. This realization troubles him, and he wonders how long this change has been happening. His mother explains that she finally secures a job and manages to gather money for moving and repairs. Takashi reflects on the court case and questions the situation, remembering that they are supposed to be acquitted. His mother explains that the other party suddenly withdraws the case. She does not fully understand the reasons behind it. She sends letters afterward, but she never receives any response. She then reveals that the total cost reaches 120 million yen. She explains that she saves up for it herself and never uses Takashi's part-time earnings because she cannot bring herself to accept that money from him. She admits that this amount is not something she could ever truly possess in her lifetime, but that is exactly why she believes it has meaning. For her, it represents something that she and Takashi should never forget for the rest of their lives. Takashi is consumed by guilt. He apologizes to his mother and excuses himself, saying that he needs to step outside for a moment. Once he leaves the room, he realizes that he is never able to say anything when he looks into his mother's eyes. It is always the same, and it causes him deep emotional pain. He is aware that he has been deliberately avoiding this confrontation. Suddenly, Kanoko appears in a state of anger and strikes Takashi hard across the face. She places the blame entirely on him, and then enters the room where his mother is resting. Takashi remains standing there in silence, overwhelmed and dejected. After that, he leaves the hospital, walks outside, and sits alone on a bench in the hospital garden, lost in his thoughts as he stares ahead without focus. Suddenly, Susaki calls Takashi, and Takashi answers the phone. Susaki asks whether Takashi has time at that moment. Takashi remains silent, which makes Sasaki sense that something is wrong and wonder what is happening. Takashi finally explains that his mother collapses and that she has lost a significant amount of weight. He realizes with pain that he never truly pays attention to her condition and fails to notice how much she has changed over time. Takashi reflects on his past and admits that when he leaves his old home, he makes a vow to start everything over from the beginning. However, instead of protecting his mother, he ends up forcing her to carry the heaviest burdens alone. He confesses that he never once asks about her well-being, and now understands how deeply negligent he has been. Hearing this, Sasaki can only remain silent, and tears begin to fall as she listens to his words. Sasaki apologizes to Takashi and urges him to tell his mother the truth about what really happens. She then recalls events from 3 years earlier, explaining that Takashi's mother comes to Sasaki's house after the incident. At that time, Takashi's mother desperately searches for another explanation, firmly believing that Takashi does not commit the murder. Sasaki remembers standing there, frozen, unable to say anything as she watches Takashi's mother in that state. She is incapable of telling her that she is raped, unable to face that reality herself, and unable to consider the suffering of Takashi's family. Now, Sasaki acknowledges that she is living what appears to be a normal life, and she openly admits that truth. She says that she will be fine if Takashi tells his mother everything, even if that means Takashi's mother will eventually reveal the truth publicly. Sasaki confesses that she carries overwhelming regret throughout the past 3 years. She suggests that they tell Takashi's mother the truth together, once she recovers. Takashi agrees to this idea. Sasaki then asks Takashi to contact her when his mother is discharged from the hospital, promising that she will come to him immediately at that time. Meanwhile, Kobayashi and his colleagues sit inside a car and decide to change their plans after being caught off guard by the situation. They are originally waiting for Takashi at the school, but they suddenly see Takashi rushing toward the hospital instead. They assume that something serious happens to one of his relatives. Kobayashi understands that in a country like this, Takashi will never respond to their questions, even if they confront him directly. Kobayashi's colleague recalls Kobayashi's comment from the previous day, when Kobayashi says that he is not certain whether Man A is the true murderer. Kobayashi explains that his suspicion is based purely on instinct because he senses something strange from that moment onward. He wonders whether they might be able to solve the puzzle by going to their next destination. When his colleague asks where they are heading, Kobayashi states that he plans to visit the victim's house. His colleague asks whether Kobayashi intends to interview the victim's wife. Kobayashi quietly hopes that it will be that simple, even though he knows the victim's wife is mentally devastated after the incident. His colleague recalls seeing her on television news at the time, noting that she does not even have the strength to pursue the case in court. Kobayashi remembers that the victim's wife suddenly withdraws the lawsuit 3 months before the trial. When his colleague asks whether an interview is possible, Kobayashi responds that if he cannot speak with her, there is only one person left. That person is Yamashita's only son, Takayuki. Kobayashi and his colleague arrive at Yamashita's house with the intention of meeting Takayuki. Kobayashi's colleague feels a sense of nervousness, aware that they are about to approach the victim's family directly. Kobayashi reminds him that this situation is part of their work as journalists and explains that there are times when they must also interview the families connected to the perpetrator. With that in mind, they press the doorbell, but no response comes from inside, leading them to assume that no one is home at the moment. While waiting, Kobayashi's colleague asks whether Takayuki is still a student. Kobayashi explains that Takayuki is currently a third-year high school student. They decide to wait nearby instead of leaving immediately. After some time, Takayuki arrives and notices them, asking whether they are looking for him. Kobayashi expresses that he wants to speak with Takayuki briefly. Takayuki wonders about the reason for their visit, and Kobayashi introduces himself as a journalist from Weekly Attack, also expressing regret for coming without prior notice. Kobayashi then asks about the time Takayuki's mother usually returns home. Takayuki explains that his mother does not come home because she is recently admitted to a psychiatric hospital. Hearing this, Kobayashi is taken aback and immediately feels apologetic, realizing that he is unaware of how severe the situation has become. Kobayashi reflects that he knows Takayuki's mother is under immense pressure, but he does not expect her condition to deteriorate to such an extent. Takayuki asks Kobayashi and his colleague to leave. However, Kobayashi stops him and asks whether Takayuki has any thoughts about Man, especially regarding his continued presence on social media. Takayuki expresses strong frustration, stating that Mana kills his father and now leaves his mother completely broken. He believes that Mane shows no concern for these consequences or for the feelings of the victim's family. Kobayashi's colleague apologizes for bringing up such painful matters. Meanwhile, Kobayashi observes Takayuki closely and senses that Takayuki appears detached, as if he no longer cares about any of it. Takayuki asks whether that is all Kobayashi wants to ask. Kobayashi then raises one more issue, turning the conversation toward Yamashita's personal belongings, specifically his mobile phone. Takayuki reacts with surprise, seemingly confused by the question. Kobayashi explains that according to the police report, the phone is listed as evidence, but the data inside it cannot be recovered. Kobayashi admits that he cannot understand why the phone is destroyed so thoroughly with a blunt object. He wonders whether there is something inside the phone that is dangerous for Man A, or whether there is another hidden reason behind its destruction. Takayuki asks what Kobayashi is actually seeking from him. Kobayashi replies that if Takayuki has the phone, he would like to borrow it briefly. Kobayashi's colleague is clearly startled by this request. Kobayashi then explains that he knows someone who specializes in this field and believes that it might still be possible to recover the data. At the same time, Kobayashi internally acknowledges that he does not intend to imply that the police failed to do their job properly. Takayuki laughs and describes Kobayashi as arrogant. He also calls Kobayashi intrusive, pointing out that Kobayashi comes unannounced and continues to dwell on the matter even now. Takayuki demands that Kobayashi stop. Kobayashi accepts this criticism, agreeing that his behavior is inappropriate and offers a sincere apology before taking his leave. Before turning away, Takayuki asks whether Kobayashi has already interviewed Mane. Kobayashi answers that he has not done so yet, but he is planning to conduct the interview as soon as possible. Takayuki then goes back into the house with a faint, mocking laugh, while Kobayashi and his colleague walk away in a state of confusion, carrying more questions than answers. Meanwhile, at Yokohama High School, Ida meets Sugita. Sugita feels apologetic for contacting Ida so suddenly earlier and carries a sense of unease about the situation. Ida asks whether Sugita needs something, and Sugita confirms that there is indeed something important. Sugita wonders whether Sasaki has said anything about him, and assumes that Ida has already heard the circulating rumors. Sugita finds it difficult to speak honestly about his feelings, and admits inwardly that he feels guilty for suddenly hugging Sasaki. Realizing that he fails to express his emotions properly and ends up acting in ways that create misunderstanding, Ida interrupts Sugita and makes him understand that Sasaki now harbors negative feelings toward him. This revelation shocks Sugita deeply. Ida explains that Sasaki is too gentle to resist anything forcefully, and that Sugita misinterprets the situation when he suddenly embraces her. Ida also admits that Sasaki confides her true feelings to him, and from Ida's perspective, Sasaki perceives Sugita's action as extremely repulsive. Only then does Sugita begin to understand, realizing that he is completely unaware of how his behavior affects Sasaki. Ida considers the situation to be very serious and asks Sugita to keep his distance from Sasaki from now on. Sugita feels emotionally wounded by this, while Ida allows himself a small smile, believing that it is necessary for Sugita to stop following Sasaki any further. Later in the classroom, Sasaki greets Ida as usual. Ida apologizes for suddenly bringing up the topic of manner before. Sasaki also apologizes for abruptly leaving their previous conversation. Ida asks whether something has happened, because Sasaki appears different than usual. Sasaki insists that nothing is wrong. She then expresses her gratitude to Ida for always looking out for her, and thanks him for everything he has done. Ida feels genuinely puzzled by her reaction, sensing that something remains unsaid. At the same time, Sasaki reads a message from Takashi stating that his mother is scheduled to return home this Saturday, and that he wants to meet and talk afterward. 2 days from now, Sasaki and Takashi plan to tell the truth to Takashi's mother, and after that, an official announcement is certain to follow. Sasaki assumes that her relationships with her friends and her parents will no longer continue in the same way as before. She imagines Sugita's face briefly, but she no longer runs away from these thoughts, and instead resolves to move forward. Meanwhile, at a school in Chiba, Takashi informs Kawaii that he is heading home earlier than usual. Kawaii thanks him for the day, and asks about the condition of Takashi's mother. Takashi explains that his mother returns home from the hospital the previous Saturday. Kawaii then asks whether the Sunday work shift should still go ahead. Takashi thinks that it is not a problem, because he wants to work as much as possible to support his mother and ease her burden. Kawaii understands his reasoning. Upon arriving at the workplace, Kawaii asks one of the employees whether there is something that needs to be said. The employee brings up the question of whether the social media account in question belongs to Takashi. Kawaii responds that, as already stated before, it is impossible for the account to belong to him. The employee then shows the latest post from that account, which displays a photo of Sasaki in a half-naked state with her face censored. Takashi immediately feels a surge of panic, prompting Kawaii to ask whether something is wrong. Takashi insists that there is no problem. Internally, Takashi recalls clearly that Yamashita's phone is completely destroyed at that time, making it impossible for any data to be recovered. In Takashi's mind, if such data truly exists, then the truth should have surfaced long ago. He cannot understand why a copy of that photo still exists. As anxiety grows, Kashi begins to speculate about who might be behind the social media account and what their true intentions are. The photo circulating on social media is the same image that Yamashita takes at that time, and Takashi finds it impossible to believe that such a thing resurfaces. As the shock lingers, Takashi remembers that his mother sends letters in the past but never receives any response. From this, Takashi begins to suspect that someone still possesses a copy of that photo. He also recalls Kawaii's words about the possibility that there is someone who harbors deep resentment toward him. Gradually, Takashi's suspicion turns toward Takayuki, Yamashita's son. Takashi becomes convinced that the disturbing post originates from Takayuki, and he questions why he never pays attention to the teacher's family until now. He also wonders whether he truly still believes what is said back then, or if he only accepts it because it is easier than facing the truth. In February 2017, Takashi is close to being released from the juvenile detention facility. His mother tells him that he must leave town for a month because the regulations require notifying the victim's family about the news of his release, and such information will come as a major shock to them. She also tells him that she speaks with the teacher's child, and that the child expresses a wish for Takashi to return to society. Takashi feels stunned by this revelation. His mother explains that this kind of response is rare, especially considering that not long ago, the victim's relatives do not even want to breathe the same air as the offender. She advises Takashi that in order to respond to these feelings properly, he must make sure to do his very best from now on. At the same time, Takashi grows suspicious that Takayuki may have another hidden intention. He starts to believe that Takayuki wants to seek revenge with his own hands. Takashi then thinks about Sasaki and feels an urgent need to tell her everything as soon as possible. However, he becomes conflicted, unsure of what he should say to her or how he should explain the situation. He also wonders how far Takayuki plans to go and how deeply he intends to involve himself in this matter. In Yokohama, when Sasaki encounters Sugita, she intends to call out to him, but Ida suddenly approaches her and greets her first. Ida then asks whether Sasaki has seen the latest post from Manga. Sasaki feels curious and uneasy at the same time. Ida explains that the post from Manga has gone viral and shows it to Sasaki, commenting on how terrible it is. Ida speculates whether this is a form of revenge pornography and believes that Manga is capable of committing such a cruel act. Sasaki is completely shocked as she sees the image of herself, with her face blurred. Ida states that if Sasaki remains involved with Manga, everything will eventually collapse, because in Ida's view, Manga has not been rehabilitated at all. Sasaki remains frozen in panic, prompting Ida to ask what is wrong. Unable to endure the situation, Sasaki runs toward the restroom, overwhelmed by confusion and fear, questioning how such a photo can possibly be spread. Soon after, Sasaki calls Takashi to inform him about the photo. Takashi answers the call and internally apologizes for already seeing the image the night before without being able to tell her. While crying, Sasaki asks who is responsible for doing this. She also explains that she still wants to speak with Takashi's mother, but she fears that the photo with her face might be leaked to the public. Takashi assures her that he will not allow that to happen. Sasaki worries that her own mother might lose her job because of this incident. Takashi promises that, before anything else happens, he will obtain the data and uncover the truth behind it. Sasaki desperately asks him to do so, because Takashi is the only person she can rely on. She also states that Takashi surely does not want anything else to be leaked either, and Takashi agrees with that resolve. After that, the call comes to an end, leaving both of them burdened by the weight of what lies ahead. Takashi thinks that, for Sasaki, he is the only person she can truly rely on. As he enters the classroom, Yamada speaks loudly to the other students, spreading the claim that Takashi does this to his own girlfriend, and labeling him as a terrifying person. Many of the students agree with Yamada's opinion, especially because the girl shown in the photo appears to be very young. Yamada continues by insisting that Takashi should not even be allowed to remain at this school, describing him as someone dangerous to those around him. Takashi remains silent and makes a conscious effort to ignore Yamada's words, even though they weigh heavily on him. Eventually, he leaves the classroom, unable to stay there any longer. Takashi knows the address of Yamashita's house, and he understands that he must obtain the data as quickly as possible. He realizes that he cannot remain passive and that he has to take action on his own. While these thoughts fill his mind, an incoming call from an unknown number suddenly appears on his phone. When he answers it, he discovers that the call comes from Takayuki. Takayuki introduces himself as Yamashita's son, which shocks Takashi deeply. Takayuki makes it clear that this is not a joke and emphasizes that he truly is who he claims to be. He also states that there are many ways to obtain Takashi's phone number. Takashi immediately asks whether Takayuki is the one responsible for the post, and Takayuki openly admits it. Takashi responds by thinking that if Takayuki truly possesses that data, then he must also know what his father does in the past. Takayuki ignores this implication entirely, and instead declares that he is about to give Takashi several instructions. The first demand is that Takashi must take a photo of himself smiling together with a girl from his own class, and send that photo to Takayuki's number within 15 minutes. Takashi struggles to understand the intention behind this demand. Takayuki then adds a clear threat, stating that if the photo is not sent within the specified time, the image will be posted online again, without any censorship on the girl's face. Takashi falls into panic. Even though Takayuki only asks for a single photo, the fact that it involves one of Takashi's classmates makes the situation even more unbearable. Takayuki ends the call with laughter, declaring that this is only the beginning of the game, leaving Takashi trapped in fear and urgency as the countdown silently begins. Takashi panics, and his fear quickly turns into frustration as he demands that Takayuki stop treating this like a joke. However, Takayuki ends the call without responding, leaving Takashi alone with the pressure of the threat. While Takashi stands there in a restless state, Kawaii approaches him and asks why he leaves the classroom. Kawaii notices that Takashi has been acting strangely since the previous day, and that unusual behavior becomes even more apparent now. Takashi hesitates and wonders whether he should involve Kawaii at all. At the same time, Kawaii asks what is happening, mentioning that the latest post has already gone viral on social media. Takashi recalls Takayuki's demand. For a brief moment, he considers asking Kawaii to take a photo together with him, but he immediately questions whether Takayuki would realize that Kawaii is from a different class. As he thinks more carefully, Takashi remembers that Takayuki already knows far too much. Takayuki knows which school he attends, where he works part-time, and even the timing of his meeting with Ken. Takayuki seems to be aware of everything Takashi has been doing, which leads Takashi to conclude that Takayuki must also know exactly which class he belongs to. Kawaii then casually suggests talking another time and walks away, leaving Takashi even more confused and isolated. Takashi remains standing there, overwhelmed and unsure of what he should do next. Class is about to start, and the teacher will soon begin the lesson. Takashi questions whether Takayuki is truly serious about this threat. He also wonders why the evidence of Yamashita's crimes is not enough to stop this situation. He cannot understand why Takayuki insists on spreading the photo without censoring Sasaki's face, and he struggles to grasp what Takayuki is really thinking or aiming for. Suddenly, Takayuki sends a photo of Sasaki with her face fully visible, accompanied by a warning that the image will be spread publicly within 5 minutes. Takashi's panic intensifies. He abruptly stands up, drawing confused and uneasy looks from the other students. The teacher, who is in the middle of the lesson, tries to get Takashi's attention, but Takashi moves quickly toward one of the female students and asks for permission to take a photo together. The atmosphere in the classroom shifts instantly, and the students grow tense. The teacher reacts with confusion and reminds everyone that class is still in session, but Takashi insists that it will only take a moment. Takashi takes a photo with the female student, even though she is visibly frightened and expresses that she does not want to do it. She cannot understand why she is being chosen. The surrounding students begin to whisper and speculate, wondering whether the girl is Takashi's girlfriend. At that moment, Yui, a male friend of Takashi, steps in and restrains him by locking his arm, trying to stop the situation from escalating further. Yui urges Takashi to stop, pointing out that the girl does not want to be involved. Takashi, consumed by desperation, demands to be released, warning that he cannot predict what might happen if he is not let go. Yui becomes frightened by Takashi's intensity and releases him. Yui is left questioning what is wrong with Takashi and whether he is still in his right mind. Takashi acknowledges Yui's concern but insists that he has no choice and that he must take a photo with someone, no matter who it is. He feels that he has completely run out of time. Acting on impulse, Takashi grabs another female student, causing her to panic as well. The other students are too shocked and afraid to intervene. With trembling urgency, Takashi takes a selfie with the girl, forcing a smile onto his face, fully aware that every second counts as he tries desperately to prevent an even greater disaster from happening. After that, Takashi leaves the classroom, while the other students begin to assume that he has completely lost his sanity. Almost immediately, notifications appear on every student's phone, announcing a new update from the social media account of Manga. Takashi feels overwhelming shame mixed with fear and panic, and he cannot stop questioning why he is being forced to do something like this. Yamada attempts to stop Takashi after seeing the latest post from the account. The female student who was previously dragged into the photo is also shocked and demands to know what Takashi is doing, especially after the image is uploaded online. Takashi suddenly becomes aware of what has happened and checks his phone. He realizes that the selfie he takes with the female student is already posted on the Manga account, accompanied by a vulgar caption. Takashi is stunned. The female student desperately begs Takashi to have the photo removed, going as far as bowing down in front of him in desperation. Meanwhile, other students react with anger and openly demand that Takashi never return to this school. Takashi panics, apologizes repeatedly, and then runs away from the scene. Takayuki calls Takashi soon after and coldly remarks that this outcome is exactly what he expects from Manga, whom he now labels as the true devil. Takayuki even speculates about whether the female student involved will end up quitting school. Takashi pleads with Takayuki to delete the post immediately, emphasizing that Takayuki has now dragged an innocent outsider into this situation. Takashi demands to know why Takayuki is doing all of this. Takayuki responds by clarifying that Takashi is the one following orders and insists that there is no misunderstanding about who is responsible. Takayuki then informs Takashi that there are still 4 more commands that must be carried out. He promises that once all 4 are completed, he will hand over all of Sasaki's data. Still overwhelmed and panicked, Takashi asks to meet Takayuki directly, but Takayuki rejects the idea outright. Takashi points out that there is no guarantee Takayuki will actually hand over the data. Takayuki acknowledges this but counters with a threat, stating that if Takashi ignores even one order, the photos will be released publicly. Takayuki demands that Takashi carry out everything properly for Sasaki's sake. He also makes it clear that he holds all of Takashi's contact information and warns him not to tell anyone that his actions are being directed by someone else. Takayuki states that the next instruction will be delivered the following day. Regarding the earlier photo of Sasaki, Takayuki mockingly suggests that Takashi should go home and make use of the image however he sees fit. Takashi is filled with anger and humiliation, while Takayuki laughs and ends the call. Afterward, Takayuki reflects on whether Sasaki is currently a girl who is in love. Some time later, Ida arrives at Sasaki's house and is greeted by Sasaki's mother. Sasaki's mother assumes that Ida has come to deliver copies of school materials. Ida confirms this and explains that Sasaki's continued absence has made her worry about Sasaki's health. Sasaki's mother expresses her gratitude for Ida's concern and mentions that Sasaki seems to be doing a little better but is currently asleep. Ida explains that she has lent her notebook to Sasaki. Sasaki's mother believes the notebook is in Sasaki's room and asks whether Ida wants to retrieve it. Ida enters Sasaki's room and sees Sasaki sleeping quietly. She urges Sasaki internally to wake up soon. Ida reflects that Takashi may have been Sasaki's close friend in the past, but now he is a murderer in the eyes of the world. Ida falls silent and gazes at Sasaki's face. thinking about how kind Sasaki is, and realizing that this kindness is the reason she has fallen in love with her. As Ida is about to leave the room, Sasaki's phone suddenly rings. Ida freezes when she sees that the incoming call is from Takashi, and at that moment, she begins to suspect that Takashi is, in fact, Man-A. Ida does not wake Sasaki to tell her that Takashi is calling. Instead, she answers the phone herself. The guy immediately asks whether Sasaki is doing all right. Ida responds by saying that there is something she wants to talk about, and firmly states that Sasaki does not want to speak with him anymore. She tells him not to contact Sasaki again, and openly declares that she already knows he is Man-A. The guy is shocked by Ida's accusation. Ida continues, saying that ever since the label of killer is attached to him, all he does is terrorize people. She also calls him stubborn and dangerous. The guy interrupts her, insisting that he wants to speak with Sasaki directly. This only makes Ida angrier. She snaps back, calling him a harasser, and once again demands that he stop contacting Sasaki altogether. At that moment, Sasaki wakes up and asks why Ito is there. She notices that Ito is holding her phone. Ito explains that Man-A was the one calling. Sasaki is startled and questions why Ida answered her phone without asking permission. Ida says she did it because she was worried about Sasaki's safety. She urges Sasaki to ignore the guy, warning that he is far too dangerous to deal with. Sasaki cuts Ida off and asks for her phone back. Ida panics and insists that Sasaki does not understand, saying that everything she has done is for Sasaki's sake. She looks completely lost, unsure of what else she should do. Sasaki keeps demanding her phone. Growing more panicked by the second, Ida finally lets go of the phone and runs out of the room. Sasaki picks up her phone and apologizes to the guy, explaining that Ida is simply worried about her in her own way. The guy says he understands, thinking that such a reaction is normal for Sasaki's friend, that he then tells Sasaki that he is going to retrieve her data. Sasaki asks whether he has figured out who is behind it, and also asks where he is right now. The guy answers that he is standing in front of the Yamashita house. Sasaki is shocked and asks whether that means someone from the Yamashita family has those photos. The guy confirms it. He adds that before he and Sasaki meet his mother the next day, he wants to take care of all of Sasaki's worries first. He promises that he will get her data back, and that he will contact her again afterward. The call then ends. Left alone, Sasaki imagines the photos of herself, and thinks about how, even after everything Yamashita has done to her, they still keep those images. She wonders what the Yamashita family truly wants from her. Meanwhile, the guy stands in front of the Yamashita house, thinking about how unexpected it is that he has come to this place for such a reason that he presses the doorbell, while wondering whether Takayuki's mother also knows about the data, or if only Takayuki is involved. After waiting for a while with no response, the door remains closed. The guy starts to suspect that no one is home and considers the possibility that the Yamashita family might not even be living there anymore. However, after a short while, Takayuki's voice can be heard, telling the guy to come inside. The guy steps in, and as soon as he enters, he sees that the house looks completely empty. He asks whether Takayuki is really there and demands that he come out, saying that Takayuki himself said he only wanted to deal with him directly. The guy takes off his shoes and walks further into the house, shouting for Takayuki to return the data. He insists that Takayuki's only target is him, so there is no reason to drag Sasaki into this mess. As he moves deeper inside, his eyes fall on a household altar, where a photo of Yamashita is placed prominently at the center. At that moment, Takayuki suddenly appears from behind him, holding a baseball bat and swings it down. The guy senses the danger just before the bat can hit him. Takayuki then comments that the guy is impressive, saying that he was able to aim for someone's head and swing with full force, while admitting that he himself could never do something like that. The guy ignores the remark and demands his data back. Takayuki responds coldly, saying that directly contacting him, and even coming to his house, violates the rules of their game. Because of that, he considers the guy too stupid for not thinking this through. Takayuki then adds that his father was also killed by the guy, so the very first thing the guy should do is apologize. Only then does the guy fully grasp what Takayuki means, and he apologizes. Takayuki, however, says that this is far from enough. To him, That apology sounds as if the guy bears no responsibility at all. He insists that the guy must complete all of the commands he has given. Anger rises in the guy, and he snaps back, telling Takayuki to stop joking around, because Yamashita did something to Sasaki. Takayuki calmly asks why his father would do such a thing. The guy falls silent. Takayuki says he will not ask again, and tells the guy to continue on his own and decide for himself. The guy asks whether Takayuki can really imagine it. Takayuki replies that perhaps the guy can. Finally, the guy says it outright. Yamashita raped Sasaki. He asks Takayuki how Sasaki must have felt at that time, and urges him to think about it seriously. Takayuki responds indifferently, asking whether it really matters if his father is killed by an outsider like the guy. The guy is left speechless. Takayuki goes on to explain that, under normal circumstances, his father would have been released from prison after several years anyway. He asks whether his father truly did something that deserved death. With shocking casualness, Takayuki adds that it was just rape. That finally pushes the guy over the edge. He lashes out and attacks Takayuki. Instead of resisting, Takayuki looks delighted and says that this is good. He points out that there is a baseball bat right there, and tells the guy to kill him the same way he killed Yamashita. Takayuki claims that if the guy does that, he will be able to protect the people he cares about. The guy reaches out and grips the baseball bat. Takayuki keeps provoking the guy, urging him again and again to kill him with the baseball bat. The guy is already gripping the bat tightly, his body tensing as he prepares to swing it toward Takayuki's head. But at the last moment, he lets out a scream and swings the bat just past the side of Takayuki's head instead. Breathing heavily, the guy demands that Takayuki hand over the data already, declaring that he will not leave this house until he gets it. Takayuki responds calmly, reminding him that he has already said he will only give the data after the guy completes all of his commands. The guy's patience finally runs out. He starts searching the house himself, convinced that the data must be hidden somewhere inside. Takayuki suddenly asks whether Sasaki is the guy's first love. The question catches the guy off guard, and he asks what Takayuki is trying to say. Takayuki explains that a first love is something truly special, a memory that the guy will never be able to forget. Most of all, he says those memories belong only to the guy and no one else. He adds mockingly that the guy should be able to find another girl besides Sasaki, suggesting that the guy is completely shackled by his feelings for her. Irritated, the guy snaps and tells Takayuki to shut up. Takayuki presses on, asking whether the guy is the only one who believes there is some kind of special bond between him and Sasaki. The guy replies that that is not the issue at all. What matters, he says, is that he is willing to do anything to protect Sasaki. Takayuki agrees, saying that the guy is right, and that this very attitude makes him want to vomit. He admits that he finds it deeply unsettling. Even after understanding the reason behind what the guy did, Takayuki still hates him intensely. In fact, understanding the guy's motive only fuels his resentment even more. The guy asks what Takayuki means by that. Before Takayuki can answer, the distant sound of police sirens suddenly fills the air. Takayuki points it out casually, and explains that he saw the guy through the window earlier. So he called the police before the guy even entered the house, believing that his life was in danger. The guy insists that he cannot leave without the data. He even begs Takayuki. Takayuki coldly tells him to remember that this is the home of the victim's family. If Takayuki tells the police that the guy attacked him with a baseball bat, then the guy will be sent straight back to the rehabilitation facility. Takayuki orders him to leave immediately, warning that if he does not, he will lose the ability to protect anyone at all. Cornered, the guy has no choice but to flee. In his haste, he climbs over the fence of the Yamashita house to escape. As he runs off, he shouts that he will definitely come back as soon as possible. Takayuki replies calmly that there is no need to worry, because they will meet again before that happens. The guy falls silent and disappears, while Takayuki closes the door to his house. After some time passes, Takayuki opens the door again when a delivery courier arrives with a package addressed to him. Takayuki receives the package and thanks the courier politely. The next day, the guy walks through a crowded area wearing a face mask. As he moves along, Takayuki's words echo in his mind. that he is the only one who believes there is some kind of special relationship between him and Sasaki. Lost in thought, he barely notices his surroundings until Sasaki suddenly comes up and greets him. She asks whether he is feeling sick, but he shakes his head and says he is not. The guy admits that he has been careless up until now, and that he does not want to cause Sasaki any more trouble. He apologizes to her, saying that he promised to retrieve her data the day before, but in the end, he failed to get it back. Just as he is about to continue, Sasaki interrupts him and says that she has nothing but gratitude for him. She tells him that one day, something bad may happen to him, and that is exactly why she is thankful, because he has fought so hard for her sake. The guy quietly accepts her words of thanks. The two of them walk on together. Sasaki then asks what kind of person the teacher's son really is, because even though he knows the truth of what happened, he still wants to spread those photos to the public. The guy answers honestly that he does not really understand what Takayuki is thinking, but it seems clear that Takayuki harbors a deep hatred toward him. Hearing that, Sasaki grips her bag tightly, clearly frustrated that everything has turned out to be nothing more than an act of revenge. The guy tells her that she does not need to force herself to explain everything right now, and that she can talk about it after he manages to recover the data. Sasaki replies that it is fine. She has already made up her mind to tell the guy's mother the truth today. The guy agrees to respect her decision, and together they head toward the hospital. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Kanoko is on the phone with her mother, telling her that she is going to the hospital with her boyfriend, and that she will call again as soon as she can. Around her, voices suddenly rise as people talk about how the social media account belonging to Mana has been blocked. One boy says that he still cannot believe the insane things Mana did, and his friend agrees. They then notice Kanoko and recognize her as the older sister of Mana, the middle school student who killed his teacher. They cannot believe that Kanoko is still attending university. When Kanoko tries to join her friends in the cafeteria, they suddenly drift away, making excuses that they have another class to attend. Some people see the scene as pitiful, while others feel sorry for her. After her classes end, Kanoko leaves the campus. As she walks, someone calls out to her and asks if she is okay. Smiling gently, Kanoko replies that she is fine. The young man tells her that he has stopped a taxi nearby, and Kanoko thanks him. To Kanoko, this feels like hell. And yet, at the same time, she feels that she can finally look toward the future because she has met this man. That man turns out to be Takayuki, who tells her that he wants to meet her mother as soon as possible.